for it to actually show up here, and randomly random technically. And we have sound off, and let me isolate the little chunk of the graphic that I need here. There we go. Trim that down, because that's way too big. There we go. The last couple of little things that I have to set up every fucking broadcast to get in that text thing. So Google changed things. It used to be that anything somebody typed in the chat while you were actually streaming would show up, and they changed that shit. So now, if you don't isolate it and actually show it while you're broadcasting, every comment anyone makes will be lost, which really sucks.
Greatly so.
Really don't like that.
So are we live now?
Test. Yes, we are indeed. Screen test is in, and we're actually completely on air now. Ooh, fancy.
Good evening and welcome to Shadow Heathens Hangout. I, of course, am the Okie playing the Ascent game. Tonight's topic is about Cider and his shirt, or other stuff, who knows. Anyways, be sure to like and subscribe now. Back to you, Shadow.
I have no idea what the fuck that was. That was not endorsed. Yeah, whatever.
They never are.
Cider and his shirt. It's a special shirt, isn't it?
It looks like a magical shirt.
Is it made of cheese?
It may be.
I don't know.
Cheesy.
I think I'm going to start calling him Intro McTree.
Intro McTree?
I don't even.
That was Carson's job.
Oh, Carson loves it. He's like, can I? We actually had him in last night for a while.
Wow, what's he been doing?
He's been sick with like
yeah.
tonsillitis or something like that.
Yeah, he's had the plague.
That's not good.
I
Plagues
won't,
are bad.
but I won't say black plague in his case, so we'll call it some other kind of plague.
Bubonic
Why
plague?
the plague gotta be black? The plague's a white plague. It's the white man's fault.
Actually,
It's the off-brown plague, okay?
well, we did actually.
The mulatto plague.
Oh crap! What was it? Smallpox? Actually, was kind of a red plague. When
Chickenpox.
when the colonists came here, they got smallpox all over these lovely blankets, and then offered them to the Native Americans. So yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah, here, have a blanket.
Yeah, aren't we nice? Hehehe, fuck you, you're gonna die. Yeah, lovely culture. Now please talk to me more about how moral we are as a nation.
And they actually did this deliberately.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Your people did this.
Yeah.
That's how they became our people.
Pretty much, yeah. And actually, something a little bit further on that particular note. Yeah, we were assholes. Complete and total fucking assholes. We come over and we try to earn people's trust, and then we literally kill them. Indirectly. It's the first germ warfare I'm really familiar with, other than simply poisoning a well.
Yeah.
And frankly,
Very
I think I'd
early
rather the poison
biological
well.
warfare.
Yeah. Move my little bar here.
I think my favourite one, and forgive me, I'm going to be a bit awful here, but you know, the Manifest Destiny about pushing to the west.
Yeah.
You know, so you got the pilgrims who are struggling, and you know the harvest fails, and basically they're going to die. But the local Indians, they come and help, and you know, and then a couple of generations later, they're being killed. Manifest Destiny kind of thing.
Yeah. As a thank you, we gave them plague blankets.
Yeah, but the thing I love about it is, and that's where Thanksgiving comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cynical.
I mean, the whole Thanksgiving story is pretty much a myth anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less.
And Jack Chick clearly has it the closest to true. Come on, guys, admit it. Jack Chick is close. Humor.
Yeah, I keep looking at the date and going, holy crap, man. The end of this month, the very end of this month, is my 7th year anniversary on YouTube. Old channel, of course.
Yeah.
But I keep looking at that going, holy crap, man. I need to get a life. I
Or at
don't know
least a
that.
paycheck.
Well, you know that would be something, but yeah, I'm used to not working with something here. And I just moved that. There we go. Fix that. Try and get that to a spot where I can actually manipulate the damn graphic. That was annoying.
Whereas Friday, I stop aging and Kevin gets a year older.
Oh.
What?
Yeah. That's how it works, don't you know? Yeah, very definitely.
Yes. No, women in my family stop aging at 29. I stop aging on Friday.
Very nice.
I don't know. I always had a slightly different hypothesis on that one, but we'll just go with that because I know better than to argue. I learned this lesson long ago.
Safer.
I just looked at mine. I joined on the 6th of November 2007.
Oh wow, you trumped me, man.
To be honest, I joined because YouTube was interesting and I wanted to leave comments. So I wasn't making videos until about, I don't know,
I joined
2.5 years ago, I think.
No, I didn't.
January 18th, 2007, and the reason I joined was I had just finished a 2-week course on like digital media video production in high school, and I wanted a place to put the project up, so.
Makes sense to me.
2 years later, I found this godforsaken community, no pun intended.
I know, we can go with the pun on that.
I like that as a fun.
Yeah, I think that works quite well. Of course, what I've been learning weirdly. The thing is, yes, I did the shaman thing for years, but I've been learning a lot since dealing with the New Age movement about just how fucked up people can make things. I never went full retard back in the day. I take great pride in that now, looking at some of this shit. But just damn.
Shit
is fucked up, man. I just don't get it.
Things have gotten kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it gets weirder and weirder every fucking year. And it's funny because back in the day, somebody'd be like, I'm a Wiccan or I'm a pagan. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But whenever somebody's like, I'm psychic, I'm like, get the fuck out.
The New Age movement, it's so, on the like religious studies front, it's so difficult to study it because it's so disorganized.
Yeah,
There's
it really is, yeah.
official organization. There's all these little mini organizations.
Little cult-like splinter groups, yes.
And I actually live, as far as like the major organizations within the New Age movement go, I actually live only about 100 miles from Fairfield, Iowa, which is like the New Age capital of the Western Hemisphere. If you've never heard of the Mariachi School of Management, it's a university that it's the Transcendental Meditation movement runs it, and they push a lot of that stuff. But there's a lot of wacky people from Fairfield I've run into.
Yeah, it's really kind of a thing going around these days, isn't it? But then again, it's been going
Did
around
you
for
really
decades.
say the Mariachi School of Management?
Yeah, it's not the band.
I was thinking, what the fuck is a Mexican music thing doing in Iowa in a new age? What the fuck?
I think you have the wrong spelling of it. Let's see. Let me find the wiki article.
Well, Kevin, all I can say is that if you didn't provide with me with a spelling, you only spoke it.
I'm sorry.
Then you must have mispronounced it.
I mispronounced it. Maharishi.
Oh, Maharishi. That makes much more sense, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just as a somewhat random footnote, while going through some of this crap that I've been checking into, you're absolutely right. It's hard to pin these fucking people down. It really is. But the way I've been going through, and some of this shit's starting to make sense. I'm almost tempted to disambiguate the crap and do another one of my Shaman Skeptic Sage things, even though it did take 40 fucking hours. Because it's, horribly enough, starting to make sense. Which I kind of hoped it wouldn't. I'd almost rather be in the dark with some things, but some of the shit's starting to make more and more sense, and I'm like, oh, I think I could explain this now. Is it worth the trouble, though? I mean, you know, part of my goal is to sit there and apply some common sense to this shit and lampoon the crap out of it. But I ended up, because chakras is such a big fucking deal, because that's most of where this whole vibration horseshit comes from, at least a pretty good percentage of it, that I figured it was worth covering in long form. I just haven't decided whether it's really worth it with some of the other shit.
Well, I wonder if the question is, can you make it funny to start with? If you can, are people going to get more out of it being funny, or are you actually breaking it down?
Well, I think both, because I can apparently, I should say, not obviously, but apparently I can both break it down and be funny at the same time. Because people responded a lot better than to the Shum Skeptic Sage thing than I would have expected. I really expected people to be kind of like, this is kind of boring.
I need to still watch that. I've been busy, and it's long.
Yeah, it is quite long. That's part of why I didn't expect people to really watch it. I mean, whenever you hit a certain length, it's just kind of like, yeah, who's going to fucking watch this shit?
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's a bit beyond that length. This is why most of the stuff I put up on this channel is, you know, 15, 20 minutes maybe. And who's giving me feedback? It shouldn't be me, I don't know. But yeah, that's most of my stuff on this channel's like 15, 20 minutes, but I'm doing the long form director's cuts on the other channel, on Secular TV. It'd be nice if I can actually remember the name of it correctly. Hello, two viewers. How are you doing today? We're just kind of spinning our wheels, chilling out. There is a link in the description if anyone wants to join in. Just felt like running an extra hangout. Figured the hell with it. That and the wifey's taking a nap, so why the hell not? Wife and dogs, too, actually. Everybody here is napping. It might as well be the middle of the night.
Yeah, well, it is here, so there you are.
I was gonna say, as far as like New Age sects go, lately I've become sort of interested in like learning a bit more about like all the Christian history and like all the different denominations under Christianity and how their theologies differ. And it's really hard to do that for the New Age movement.
Yeah. Well, basically, on some levels, it's very doable. But it is tricky, because what happens is you sit there and you try to figure out if there's some kind of ancient, you know, somewhat Gnostic movement that they had with, you know, here's our sacred knowledge or whatever. And then what you have to do is say, okay, well, we have this kind of sacred knowledge. Here's Kabbalah, for example, taken from Judaism. And then you look over to the West and you say, okay, how did they fuck that up?
Basically what I've been trying to do with Christianity is like look at what theologies each sect have and what means they follow and where they came from, and sort of try to create a map. You can't do that for the New Age movement. Or at least the same process that I've been using hasn't worked.
No, it won't, because what you have to do is it's really fucked up in that you have to figure out who it was that brought certain notions over here. For example, the guy that was behind 3HO is the one that brought Kundalini Yoga, popularizing both this whole Kundalini crap, to a degree the chakras, even though that kind of existed a little bit in terms of there were some Buddhist influences in with that. But then what this guy did was introduce the whole notion of the Kundalini serpent and all these other things of it, and really help popularize yoga in the process. Now, granted, over in India, where, you know, the real Hindus are from, they do have a word for yoga. It's exercise.
Yeah.
This American yoga thing, they just call that exercise. Yoga over there is something completely fucking different.
Yeah.
But that's what happens, is things get brought over here, get added to this stack of stupid hippy-dippy crap. And that's actually really what helped popularization initially of a lot of these concepts, was that hippie movement.
Yeah. Fucking hippies.
Yeah, John Lennon and the Beatles have a lot to answer for.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, pretty much.
I hate the Beatles.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, it seems like all these notions, once they come over here, they just get retarded and bogged down. The concepts of like numerology and this kind of stuff, that can be dated back to ancient Rome. Technically, possibly beforehand, but the biggest school pertaining to that kind of thought was Pythagoras.
Yeah.
So you basically start there, then there's this big fucking gap, and then you have the New Age movement adopting it. Kabbalah
And
studies.
of course, the New Age movement also makes trying to research any of these things online very fucking annoying because they pollute the search results.
Yes, and
Yep.
that's the biggest problem I've been having with covering the series. Which is why when you said, "Oh, I know it's a tulpa," I bet it on the tulpa. I'm like, "Yay!" Because I couldn't even get the right fucking spelling of it.
The Trupa. Yeah, they mispronounce it too.
Yep. But I was actually shocked when you knew that one. I was like, "Oh, yay! I can look this up." Then I'm like, "I've done this shit dozens of fucking times, and not just through writing either. I mean, even back when I was messing with this crap." Okay, these people that talk about their channeling and all this shit. They're, well, we're talking to higher dimensional beings. I'm like, and my first thoughts, what the fuck? I was kind of into this shit years ago. No, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to an expression of your own subconscious mind. Don't you fucking get that?
Yeah. The first thing that I thought that came into my head when I discovered the Tulpa subreddit and started reading about it was, the person of Jesus in a lot of these Christian theologies that emphasize the whole personal relationship thing, Jesus is a tulpa, basically. They don't create it in the same way, but that's really what it is.
It's like
that's
a
how I
gift.
perceive it.
It's like a regifted tulpa.
Yeah.
It's regifting.
Well, yeah, and actually, I was kind of moving towards that a little bit with what I was just saying a minute ago. It's kind of fascinating because, well, I was doing this whole thing. There were, God, I'm going to have to use some of the New Age terminology. Please excuse me for that. But there were quote quote entities that I came across while I was doing the whole astral projection thing and this kind of stuff. And I'd start interacting with them. Now, what I think is funny is one of the big guys that's in this movement was supposedly channeling Thoth. And my first thought when they were talking about this is like, okay, I remember a spirit journey in which I came across Thoth. I don't mispronounce it, mind you. I call it Thoth because it's fuck you. So Thoth off on that one. But, so I ran across this thing, and I tried to communicate with it, and was unable to communicate. Now, and this was, this is your subconscious mind trying to communicate things to you. So this was lesson number 1 to me, is that people will ascribe intelligence to things that cannot speak for themselves. There is no consciousness, there is no awareness, this thing's just a construct with no intelligence or ability to communicate or speak or anything. And basically, it's that whole thing of people thinking, oh, they don't talk much, so they must be intelligent. And I'm like, so that's why this collective construct was regarded as being intelligent, because it never said a fucking word.
My cat doesn't talk much. She must be really intelligent. Actually, no, she does talk.
Sometimes dumb is true of a person in both senses of the word.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is you can sit there just, make your occasional grunt and nod your head, and people think you're fucking brilliant. Same phenomena. Now, on different quote-unquote journeys, I met other things that were once worshipped, and in talking to them, they're always like, yeah, don't talk to me about that. You run into the proverbial green man or what have you. It's like, well, there's a whole bunch of people that consider you a god. Don't talk to me about that. Okay, I won't. Wow, you are not amused, kind of thing. But these are all ultimately extensions of your own consciousness that you're speaking with. I mean, at best case scenario, if you were to buy into the collective consciousness thing or subconsciousness or what have you, you could equate some of these things as being constructs that aren't individualized. Meaning that the construct exists, but until you interact with it, you don't have your own copy of it, so to speak. The construct, something that's already out there, it's a communal construct, but once you start interacting with it, it becomes your own psychological construct at that point. So anything that you're saying or interacting with it with is Now, they would say it's just for you because these things communicate to everyone differently and da-da-da-da-da. And I say, no, you've adopted the psychological construct into your own mind at this point, so you have your own framework through which to deal with it. But this doesn't, it's not going to correlate with anyone else's because it's just a mental construct. And this is where I think their big disconnect is.
As far as the whole Jesus thing goes, like the church I was raised in very heavily emphasized the whole personal relationship with Christ thing. But once I got out of it and started to learn more about Christian history, I found out that whole theology is actually pretty new. It's the mid-20th century.
Yeah.
And it actually, if in some of the older Christian traditions going back hundreds of years, would have been considered blasphemy since they don't believe that God or Jesus has that kind of interaction with people.
But at the same point, this ties into what I was saying a moment ago in terms of the notion of a collective construct. You know, you have all these different religious beliefs and what's being promoted by different religious ideologies that's promoting this idea of this Jesus character being a specific way. So you have this collective construct. And then once somebody starts trying to have whatever relationship they want with it, it becomes a personal construct completely devoid of that. You're basically taking, it's like taking a puppet before you put it on your hand. It doesn't have the persona.
Exactly.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel that that's what they're doing, is basically taking this collective construct and making it their own. So then they have their own personal Jesus, so to speak.
And then it gets really fun when
cue the song.
I was just thinking
We'll get
exactly
flagged.
Depeche Mode.
Can't cue it, I'll get flagged. Go ahead.
It gets really funny when the personal Jesuses of various Christians start to disagree with each other, and then the church is like, well, one of you must have some sin in your life.
Or whatever, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you go to psych wards, and it's very common to have people with delusions believing that either they are Jesus or are talking to Jesus. And it's fun because you can take multiple Jesuses, so to speak, and put them in the same room, and they'll each come out going, you know, they were a very nice man. It's sad that they're so deluded.
Yeah.
The thing is, they are all deluded because I'm Jesus.
Well, yeah, that's
This is going
entirely
to
the
get
point.
into one massive Spartacus hangout very quickly.
That is Jesus.
I'm Jesus. No, I'm Jesus.
No, the funny thing about it is that it kind of works because two things. The first one is you'd be amazed. My name isn't actually Cliff Jumper.
No.
We know it is. Come on, Clifford jumps.
Disillusion.
Anyway, my name's Dave, and David means son of God, which makes my dad God. Which makes me Jesus.
See how that works?
And secondly, I can perform miracles. I can, well, a miracle anyway. I can drink Pepsi Max and turn it into wine. Yeah, it takes a couple of hours and requires a toilet, but you know.
No, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's nothing. Jesus walked on water. I run on cider.
I'm in Canada. I walk on water on the regular for like 5 months.
Yeah, whenever it freezes.
I'm in Alaska. It's more like 7 months here.
I
win.
I'm not used to you people being more north. My bad.
I just drove to a dentist, got my tooth pulled, and drove back.
Ooh.
Allie.
And I'm talking to you now on Google as if nothing ever happened.
Dun dun dun.
Feel better.
Witchcraft.
Oh, must be.
Burn him.
It must be demonic. Just like everything else.
How's everybody doing?
Turn me into a newt.
Good evening, Sir David.
I'm gonna have to start setting up my sound properly so I can stream clips. Oh well.
Is this about writing?
It initially was. We were talking about essentially character creation and how we build these psychological constructs in our minds. That was the initial hangout, which ran for an hour and a half roughly, and then we decided to just do something random.
It's a pre-shuffle.
Something like that.
I've wrote a few things here and there.
It's more of a boogie.
Well, when you actually do character writing, when you're writing with characters, though, do you build a construct in your mind of what that character is like to the point that you can almost have a dialogue with them?
Well, that's what the professionals say you should do.
Well, yeah, that's what I do. That's what Rose does.
Yeah.
It makes for a more real exchange when you actually have dialogue, or when you actually writing your story. The more real the character is to you, the more realistic it'll seem to the reader. At least that's the theory.
But the real question is, are we actually creating these universes? Because if we're actually creating these universes, I feel really sorry for all the people I'm making.
Ooh, likewise. Corrales is not a nice place.
Right, I would
such a
no, because then you're getting into like it might be a little bit crazy.
Well, the thing is whether you mean that in a very literal sense or whether you mean it in a perceptual sense. I mean, there's a notion of the actual reality that we all coexist in versus a constructed reality in which somebody can visit as a psychological construct.
Well, you're creating a fantasy for yourself.
Yeah. But how real experientially, in terms of what you bring into yourself for experiences, could that be considered?
I think that this should be treated very carefully.
Yes, it should.
Because you could develop a neurosis, a psychosis.
Well, neurosis is something else, but yeah, psychosis.
Well, I thought a neurosis was less than a psychosis. I thought it. Anyway, I'm not an expert in that stuff, but you could start to lose touch with the actual reality.
Yeah, and I think that's really the danger, and this is part of why I'm going after the New Age crap lately, is because I think a lot of these people are losing touch with reality in favor of, well, basically psychological constructs, delusions that they're amusing themselves with. They're forgetting that what's imaginary is imaginary and what's real is real. I think that division is getting a little bit too thin for many people that are into this kind of stuff.
I'm not that familiar with a lot of popular New Age stuff. I mean, are they actually inventing realities for themselves?
For all intents and purposes, yeah. There's a lot of people that claim to be channeling angels, claim to be channeling, bringing into themselves to have conversations with things like angels and aliens and all this kind of stuff. And believe that these places, quote, that these things reside are literal places and what have you.
Well, if you're going with the traditional concept of angelic beings, and from what I understand about what I've seen on TV, when people do channeling and stuff, it's that you're willing the channeling yourself, but the traditional concept of angelic visitation is that it's just spontaneous. You have no control over it. So you're not like going to sit down, well, I'm going to contact my angel today. No. If there is such a thing as an angel, the angel will show up whether regardless of what you want. The angel will show up when it wants to.
And that's that's quite similar in some regards to what these people that are in the New Age movement are claiming in terms of things they claim to, whether they claim that they're angelic beings or higher dimensional aliens or what have you. And I think that these things are merely a psychological construct. It's something that they've constructed in their mind, much like when somebody that writes is creating a character in their head for a story.
Well,
but I think in their case, the division between the actual reality and the reality they're building in their head, the false reality, is just becoming so paper thin that they can no longer differentiate.
Well, as someone who has a sort of a type of Christian belief, I would draw the line at who is trying to be in control here. Are they having God being in control, or are they in control? When they if they're saying like, well, I'm going to make the angel appear, or I'm going to do some meditation or whatever to make this experience happen, then they're the ones that are in control. Therefore, I'm more apt to believe that it's false than if it just they were just living their life, walking down the street, and all of a sudden, whatever, God speaks to them in their ear, or some angel shows up out of the blue, they just tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you need to hear this. That would be more along the line of traditional belief structure that Christianity came out of.
I can't really see that there's much of a difference, quite frankly.
Well, from his point of view, there probably wouldn't be. But from a Christian point of view, it's you're actually the one doing it. There's no doubt about it. You're the one. I mean, if you're making it happen, you're the one making it happen. If you're just living your life and just going about your day, and then all of a sudden, something happens, you didn't make it happen as far as Christianity is concerned.
But that psychological model has to precede the event.
Well, then I'm making a distinction here between a Christian point of view and an atheistic point of view.
Well, the thing is, whether it be a Christian point of view or Muslim point of view or Hindu point of view or what have you, you have to. People aren't going to see something outside of what they have foreknowledge of. This can be evidenced, for example, in the New Age movement with all these claims pertaining to aliens. They don't sit there and communicate with aliens that they've never heard of. Now, in terms of angels, if an angel were to identify itself to you, it would be a name that you're familiar with. It wouldn't be some brand new angel, now would it? Unless you're making up Moroni.
I'm not sure I'm following you here. Are you saying that that if you do receive some sort of unearthly experience, you'd only receive that unearthly experience based upon your preconceived notions? Is that
basically if an angel were to appear to a Christian, and the Christian were to ask the angel its name, unless you're somebody that's trying to start a cult based around the teachings of the angel Moroni, or moron with I at the end, and that's a quick dig in the direction of the Mormons. Unless you're one of these kind of hucksters, the angel is not going to identify itself with some totally different name. It's going to be Gabriel, for example, which is the one that Muhammad believed he was speaking with, or an angelic name that you're familiar with.
But those aren't actually names. An angel wouldn't give its name. Well, we say it's a name because of our traditions and stuff, but if you look up the meanings of those words, they're actually titles. An angel, according to traditional Christian teachings and all the stuff that goes with it, history. An angelic being or something of an unearthly nature would not give up its name because that would give the earth dweller power over it. It would just give out a title, if anything. So that would send up a red flag to me if someone said, well, an angel came down and said his name was Charlie.
Well, I actually, since you kind of went down there, and this actually ties in with ancient notions of mysticism, the idea of a name gives you a power over a thing. Sorry.
Charlie had angels.
Does
I didn't know there was an angel named Charlie. I'm just joking.
Well, I suppose there could be. It doesn't really matter what one would necessarily call it, but if the angel were to identify itself, this notion of having power over it, this goes back to ancient spiritism, that knowing a thing's true name gives you power over it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back further than that. It goes back to the ancient Abrahamic faiths as well.
No, even before that. It's more mysticism, and it's
that's why Yahweh, even though the Israelites are not allowed to say the name Yahweh, that is an actual name. That's a title.
Just a really quick, amusing aside, since you mentioned like names giving you power over a person. On Encyclopedia Dramatica, the term "power word" is used humorously to refer to a person, an online persona's real name, as in like doc dropping, and that like as far as someone who's using a pseudonym and wants to remain anonymous is concerned, like knowing their real name, having their docs is like sort of gives you power over them.
But yeah,
it's kind of funny.
Personal. I mean, it's like I don't know where it starts from. It just seems to make a lot more sense. I mean, the more personal you are with an individual or an entity, then the more familiar you are with it, then the more you can ingratiate it to you and you to it. It would just be as far as faith goes, it would just be a level of vulgarity or profanity. Like a higher being intimate with a lower being. Just there's something profane about that.
And sexy.
Shadow, let me ask you a question.
Drank and went down the wrong pipe, still recovering. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Are you saying, not to change the subject back to where you were saying something before about if somebody claims that they've talked to an angel, or you were talking about aliens, you were saying something to the effect of they wouldn't be naming the alien or the angel without already having some kind of
Typically, yes. Now, this is in part a matter of one's own creativity. Most people don't, frankly, have the capability to do so.
Well, I was thinking, if it's in the case of aliens, wouldn't they be making up names to begin with?
Oh yeah, the people that originate these concepts, but most people that are claiming to be doing these things are taking concepts from others and personalizing to themselves and making their own psychological constructs to coincide with what they've read about them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sort of like how you watch occasionally catch a glimpse of like a child's cartoon or something.
Take care, Cliff.
They'll take a name and make something up like Galacticus or something. Obviously it's derived. That's not. I mean, is it?
Well, I mean, if you want to look at it that way, most of the names in the Bible are very similar derivations.
Yeah.
I mean, most people just happen to have the names of what their task was going to be.
Yeah, Barabbas being the key one.
Yeah.
It just seems more obvious. It just seems more obvious in these day and ages when people make up a name. You can pretty much tell if they'll take an English word, tweak it a little bit, and you were like, you really didn't think this through too much. Of course, we know it's fake. You made up a fake name based on an English word. I mean, do a little bit more research. I mean, can you make up like a Latin name or a Hebrew name, or something to make it sound more authentic?
That wouldn't make it any less fake. So
yeah, but it would make it a little bit more difficult for the layman.
Well, a lot of the names that you come up with are that these people have come up with for these supposed aliens and what have you. Some of them are things as vague as Greys, which, whatever, and others are, well, frankly, seem to be the butchering of pre-existing words out of fiction, or pre-existing names out of fiction.
Well, what would you expect? If it was legitimate, what would you expect?
Honestly, I think it'd be hilarious if somebody was channeling something and it decided that his name was Bob. Or something that sounded like a name, or something that, I mean, honestly, if somebody were sitting there and contacting something,
like The Exorcist, Captain Howdy.
This thing's sitting there trying to access the human language center, in theory, to try and get words to use. Wouldn't it just say, there is no translation of my name, there's no way to express it in your tongue, so pick a name for me? Wouldn't this even seem more rational? You don't have enough tongues
to say it. If we're spitballing here, I would expect if there was an actual alien up here, I would expect that he would tell me that his name was something like the leader of the fifth column of some star system or somewhere that
Well, that's the problem. Is that's the kind of crap they're coming up with. They're not saying my name's Hizu. What?
No, one language. But I'm saying what it would do is it would try to pick, using our language, try to pick a description, and it would end up being like a sentence.
Well, there's a good amount of that, but these things are all like peace and love all the time, and they're a collective that works together, and they're all telepathic, and everyone gets along. And give me a break.
Well, of course, there's always those people.
And then tell her bullshit.
Star Trek. Star Trek.
There's those people that use words backwards.
Well, a good example of what I'm talking about. A good example of what I'm talking about would be in the science fiction story line of Star Trek, 7 of 9.
Yeah.
That's not a name, but it's a designation that we can relate to, in its alien kind of system.
But the thing is, these things, when it comes down to it, they're psychological constructs. There's this thing called a tulpa, which we were referencing earlier. And tulpas is a willful exercise to essentially create a character in your mind and envision it to the point that you can actually interact with it as if it's your subconscious speaking directly to you. And it will speak and interact in ways that you necessarily wouldn't.
Well, that would be like a psychosis.
Yes, but the thing is that people are aware that it's not something that's real.
Okay. When you
And that's
don't
the
think
thing, is
it's-
it's creating
you
a
don't think
psychological
it's-
construct that they can interact with.
Very Star
So
Trek.
it's very almost a self-induced intentional psychosis.
Yes, but you must maintain the awareness that this thing it does not exist in reality, and you're the only one that can perceive or interact with it.
Yes.
It is quite literally a head game. And as we were mentioning before we went on air, it's horrifyingly popular within the brony community.
Well, I don't know what that is.
Be thankful.
Be glad.
That's some more new
Well,
age.
you see, there's these group of men that are really into My Little Pony, and they're kind of friends about it.
Are you sorry you asked?
Wow. Are
Yeah.
you serious?
Yes.
It's just as
Yeah.
horrifying as it sounds.
That's like one step above pedophilia, isn't it?
Well, no, no.
No, it's closer to bestiality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always looked at My Little Pony like something little girls would like.
I know.
I love
girls
That's what
like.
one would assume.
Yeah, but these are males, typically basement dwellers with very few friends.
You mean
that
they
want the
actually imagine
ponies
having
around
sex with cartoon
them.
ponies?
No. It's
No.
that they. It's just. Wow,
Pervert.
am I about to say this? It's more of a transcendental kind of love. Wow, that's a fucked up thing to say.
Oh,
Because it's not a weird. It's not some kind of weird sexual thing. It's more like. Yeah.
And like an
It's a
attraction.
bunch of grown men who like playing with little girls' toys.
They actually
And
play-
dressing up as them.
They're grown men. They play with little girl toys.
No,
Yes.
they don't even
Sort of.
necessarily play with the toys. It's just they love the ponies, and not in a weird sexual way. It's in a different weird
They
way.
do conventions and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, they're weird. They're interesting. A
Yeah.
friend of mine's one actually.
Comic book men, they went to one of their conventions and then competed in the costume contest and got booed off stage.
To me, they're attracted to My Little Pony the same way Trekkies are attracted to Star Trek.
In a manner of
Pretty
speaking, that's a
much.
fair way to put it. That's a much
Okay,
more
that's
fair way to put
Not
it.
all
One more
the
time.
birds and stuff.
Wow.
That's somebody that needs
Calm yourself,
a
Patrick.
job.
Yeah, that could be the case. Hey, Redline, how's it going, man?
Sup?
They need a job and a girlfriend.
The general theme had been thought constructs, but then I referenced bronies, and we're off on that for the moment.
Yeah, I've had maybe 4 or 5 close friends now who were considered themselves bronies, and at least 4 of them had jobs and 3 of them had girlfriends. So, and they're all very indulgent people.
They're just
And
different.
they're not
So yeah,
curvy.
so yeah, stereotyping. Don't think much of it.
I think I know what you're talking about, but just for
That's
me,
fine.
what is a fucking brony?
A person that
Adult
has
male fans of My Little Pony.
Yes, a person that has a strange appreciation for My Little Pony that almost transcends like logic.
Oh, I see.
Religion?
often bordering on obsession.
Yes.
I see. So are these the same people that also take it in the ass? I'm guessing. I'm not sure.
No, those are cloppers.
Oh, I see. Okay, my bad.
They have a name.
Yes, they have a name.
Maybe if
That
I,
is awesome.
maybe if I take off and get a beverage and maybe even go take a leak and come back, maybe we'll talk about stuff. Maybe Shadow will find something.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get back to the root of the initial conversation that started the former hangout.
I'm at the bottom of this bottle and I'm going to have to get a new one. So it's both.
Yeah,
If I can't drink, I'm taking Tylenol with codeine.
but the thing is, as humans, we build psychological constructs. We model other people, whether it's through the writing process and creating fictional characters in your mind and letting them interact with each other or what have you. This is a thing that we do. The easiest way to illustrate this is when you're thinking of a loved one or what have you, and you, before contacting them on the phone or what have you, and when you're planning on discussing something with them, you can sit there and go through the conversation in your head, and you have a fairly good, if you have a good model of the person, you can anticipate how they're going to respond and what they might say. Now, it's not going to be completely accurate, but it's a degree of how accurate you are is directly related to how good that model in your head is. I've had entire conversations with my wife in my head and then said something off out loud, and she's then like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, never mind, sorry, conversation was in my head with you. She's like, what were we discussing? Was it a good conversation? And we'll go back and forth with that.
Okay, that's weird.
That's not weird. It's a.
That's not weird.
Yeah, okay. Whatever you say.
So you don't actually have models of people in your head.
I thought everybody does.
Not that I'm aware of.
So if you go to,
I thought the brain was like a holodeck.
Well, in a manner of speaking, it could
I
be.
mean, I don't have models of real people in my head, if that's what you mean.
Okay, so here's the thing. Let's refer to a parent. If you were going to call a parent and you were going to talk to them about something that you felt was a little bit awkward, or what have you, would you run through the practice dialogue in your head with a simulacrum of them doing the responses?
No, because I pretty much know how they would react anyway.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
Precisely what he's talking about.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, we do. We all do that.
I mean, I don't have the actual conversation in my head. I just know that they'll probably respond positively or negatively, with maybe a few more details than that. I mean, it wouldn't be like I would know.
So you
exactly
do run over the conversation in your head then?
No, I don't have an active.
It doesn't have to be conscious.
You know,
If I were to,
It doesn't have to be conscious, but you're able to anticipate it.
If I were to call
I don't
up my
think
brother,
you realize-
right now, and I already know that our conversation would only be about 3 or 4 minutes before I would get tired talking to him.
Yeah, because David, I think you don't realize that even if it only takes a split second, the entire conversation, practice conversation went around. It went inside your head, and you found the answer. That's what that is.
I have no knowledge of the exact words.
well, no, we're not saying exact words.
What about the brain?
It's a matter of how predictive your model is in terms of the psychological model you have. It's basically a psychological model that you've built of that person and what you know of them and how they respond to things.
You're basically describing memory and familiarity.
In a manner of speaking, yes, that's what it's based
To a
on.
point, yes.
Yeah.
It's an element of it, yes.
But that psychological modeling isn't a literal thing. It's not a literal entity or what have you. And this is what a lot of people do is they, in terms of, like whether it be the New Age movement or frankly within a lot of religious groups, is that they build these psychological models that are more interactive than they should be, and they're considered more literalistic than they should be.
I mean, I go over a conversation in my head when I'm like planning out one of these prank calls.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, I just got a message saying that I apparently won a Mercedes, and the phone's caller ID says Jamaica.
Yeah.
Please give us our bank account number so we can transfer the
What
Mercedes.
list did you get on Redline? This is what, like the 18th fucking call like that? Holy shit.
I mean, I can call him right now and see what happens.
Make up my car for you, you know.
I mean, I can call him right now and see what happens if you guys want me to.
Nah, fuck
What
it.
up?
Jamaica. Yeah, it's a voicemail, and it said that like I won a Mercedes and to give him a call back.
Lord, will you buy me a Mercedes Benz?
I thought you guys were going to be discussing like riding mechanics and stuff like that.
No, well, we were talking more about the character. The thing is, we were talking about character modeling initially, as it relates to basically building psychological models of individuals, whether it be fictional characters or what have you.
Yeah, I think we all do that to some extent, and in fact, I can even go further. If like Dave was saying, if you asked your brother, sister, or relative something, you sort of anticipate an approximate answer that you expected, and it doesn't do any major reaction to you. On the other hand, if you get a reaction completely different than what you thought you were going to get,
When they act completely outside of those parameters, it just catches you completely off guard, yeah.
Right, so therefore your model, as you call it, was off.
Yeah.
By a little bit more than you expected.
I mean, you don't have to go like full Wilson on it. It's just a thought.
Yeah. Now, I, on the other hand, have my varied puppets that act as characters when I'm doing my shows, and each of them has their own distinctive personality, which just kind of arose organically after using the puppet long enough. Hey, Kizzy. But we all build these models, whether it be people in our lives or have read a book or what have you, and we have an idea of what that character should be like. And then when we see them on the screen, translated from novel to the big screen, a lot of the time we have this massive disconnect based upon what our own internal model of what that character should be and what's displayed on the screen.
Yes.
I think Stephen King had some difficulties with that. Pretty much most of his.
Pretty much everybody has.
Movies was like nothing like what he wanted it to be in the from the book to the movie, screenplay to the movie.
Well, when they switched from the classic campy Batman to the Dark Knight Batman, there was a lot of people that got really upset when they went to the theater.
They're idiots.
I really don't know the difference.
I still like the
Biff
Tim Burton.
Wham Pow version versus the one that kills people.
Oh, there's a Batman that kills.
That's
Yeah.
for me.
Oh, that's not Batman to me.
That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't match with the model that you have in your head for that character.
I'm a 52-year-old man. I really don't give a damn.
I like the campy stuff. I liked the Tim Burton version. I wasn't that big of a fan of the newer ones.
They can do. It's like somebody.
I
Wasn't there a thing a while back where people were getting upset that they wanted to make Spider-Man a black guy,
Yeah.
and people got upset.
Which is silly. It shouldn't make it. Theoretically, it doesn't make any difference, but it doesn't comport with the model people have in their heads, and people object.
That's their freaking problem. It's a made-up.
It's like every time there's a new James Bond,
yeah.
you know, it comes up. Is it going to be a black guy? Is it going to be a woman?
How
No,
dare
it
it
has
not
to be
be Roger Moore?
I would have gave a crap if I was like 16.
There was a fan theory I saw on Reddit for James Bond that sort of dealt with that by explaining it that James Bond, just like 007, was a code name and that it wasn't one person, it was all these different people.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes more sense.
It's
Yeah, well,
James
that's-
Bond
Yeah,
apologetics.
Spider-Man is specifically one person. He was
I understand what you're saying because
a science geek college kid.
here's a character I really like, a fictional character I really like, and say it's been around for a good long time. And then the people who have the rights to this character started making changes that I didn't approve of, or I think would so drastically change the character it would not be the same character. And I would just throw up my hands and say, okay, well then that's not the character that I have in my worldview or whatever thing you want to use to describe it. Then, as far as I'm concerned, then my fantasy from years ago is the one that I cling to, and do what you want with the other one.
Like with James Bond, I was seeing this. I was reading an interview with Daniel Craig, and he was saying that Austin Powers just totally fucked James Bond, and they feel that they can't do any sort of campiness anymore, or it'll feel like Austin Powers. I'm like, no, don't let that ruin it. But you know, that's one of the reasons why all the new ones are always so serious, and it's more like an action film than a James Bond film.
I thought James Bond was an action film.
Well, the thing is, it used to be
There
action
used
and
to
a
be
bit of
more
campiness,
intrigue.
and it had there are these elements that are just kind of gone now
For
from
me,
James
James
Bond.
Bond is more.
Yeah, same here.
You know, my best friend from a while back, James Bond, it was Sean Connery. You know, but you know, it just depends on you know what era you were in and part of it and how you grew
I
up.
kind of liked Connery.
And the thing is, it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's your fantasy, it's your personal way of looking at it, and then so be it. That doesn't mean everyone else has to be on page with you.
This is kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these psychological models that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we have our own conceptions, and this can be, as I was saying earlier, and you're of course can feel free to object to this, but pretty much everyone that's Christian seems to have their own psychological model as to who the character of Jesus is.
Correct.
I don't think it matters.
Cool. Okay. Fair enough.
I'm not sure. I think
I mean, I started to see
I think there's like a limited number of models.
Well,
I'm
that's
just
just
not
it.
sure.
I don't think there really is. I mean, everyone kind of gets what they need to.
It only matters if it's a real person that you're contemporary with, or at least you have some realistic knowledge of. something concrete that you can go by. For example, George Washington. I mean, if somebody wanted to write a George Washington story and then decided to make George Washington Italian, I mean, it would be stupid.
Yeah, I get
it would have, because we all know better. But if it's a made-up character, like some guy made up a character that lived in the colonial days, and for 200 years the character has always been described a certain way, and all of a sudden somebody wanted to change what the character looked like, sounded like, acted like. It really doesn't matter because it's a made-up person.
Well, see, it's like Lincoln. Lincoln supposedly had, in actuality, had this really high-pitched, kind of whiny voice, and no one usually thinks of Lincoln that way. And usually, when Lincoln has been portrayed, it's this booming voice. But in actuality, when you read about it, he had this really whiny, high-pitched voice.
Forrest Gump, 7 years ago.
That would be funny. Yeah, because he's tall. And usually taller people have deeper voices.
Well, when we found out about some of the actual Greek pronunciations, things got a little bit awkward with the whole Vidi Vicky Vici thing, because it's actually the V would have been pronounced a W, so it was Witty Wiki Wiki.
Okay.
Which just sounds kind of weak.
I'm not sure. You're saying that it makes less of a difference if it's a made-up character, but I'm not so sure. Like, well, why not take something that all the young people basically watched? The Albus Dumbledore in the first 2 movies was Richard Harris.
Okay.
I loved his character, but he died, and then he got that jerk Michael Gambon, and it was like, what happened to Albus Dumbledore? This guy is not him. This is totally a different guy.
Well, that's your preconceived notion of a fantasy.
Plus, he's not as good of an actor anyway.
It's not a real person.
Well,
like
the thing
Washington
is,
or Abraham Lincoln.
with characters that once they're well established and you have a certain actor that's been playing them, once you swap out that actor, people have redefined their mental model to suit more with what that actor looks like in terms of the appearance, which forms another kind of disconnect.
I can kind of make a point.
You can make a point.
William Wallace from Braveheart. Now, where I live currently is the town that's named after him. He's portrayed in Braveheart as Mel Gibson, obviously. Clean-shaven, half face is blue, this, that, and the other thing. But in actuality, he was some ugly-looking man with beard and kind of, you wouldn't let your kids near him kind of looking guy. But nobody sees him as he really was. They see him as a Mel Gibson version. Even the mural uptown has him as a Mel Gibson version.
So he looks Scottish.
This particular person from history, I only know from the movies, as you said, but I mean, how well known is his actual true physical characteristics known to people?
Go to Scotland and this town.
What's that?
Yeah.
Scotland and this town.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's like super well known. People would see Mel Gibson and go, "Well, that's not him."
Oh, obviously,
it's
yes.
not Scottish, it's crap.
Yeah.
No real resemblance there.
So, then you got a legitimate.
If you're in the UK, Scotland, or around here, then yeah.
Yeah, if you'd grown up with that, with the actual initial look as part of your paradigm, then there'd be a disconnect when you saw the actor.
But if somebody were to make up a story about Julius Caesar and it got seriously looked upon and was becoming popular, you would want to portray Julius Caesar as accurately as you could if there was enough information about it. But if you had none, then you could have him be however you want.
But at the same point, if you grew up with certain kinds of portrayals of Caesar and they then decided to portray one that was much more accurate and that conflicted with what you were familiar with, there would be a disconnect there regardless of how accurate it was.
Well, then the writer should have been professional enough to try to make it accurate.
They show my real face for the newcomers.
Hey, Isabella, how's it going? In any case, I don't know if you're text only today or not, but we are actually, as you can see from the magic red button, we are live. But one thing that gets me is that as I said, we have these varied mental models that we use when we're regarding characters, whether they're actual or fictional or what have you. And over time, these models do change as cultural understandings or cultural expectations change. And in terms of characters like say, whether it be Buddha or Jesus or Muhammad or what have you. I think after a certain period of time, it gets to the point that the fiction of the character actually becomes more prevalent in this kind of modeling than the actual potential true or historical character would be otherwise. A good example of this that I'd like to defer to is Ronald Reagan. I lived through the Reagan era, and the Reagan people are talking about now is not the Reagan I remember.
Meaning he wasn't like in the movie Dick?
Okay, Ronald Reagan, the way he's being portrayed, how?
In terms of the GOP, that he was this great president, and he did all these wonderful things, and he didn't lie, and he was so honest, and all this other stuff. This is a fiction.
Well, okay, I remember the Reagan years too. And, he was very charismatic, and so the charisma became the reality. So.
Well, even beyond that, I mean, I was sitting in Waffle House quite a number of months ago now. Hell, it was probably a couple of years ago, and this couple behind me was sitting there trying to have this conversation with the quote-unquote liberal waiter that was working there, and these two were quite conservative and all this other stuff, and I made the comment because they were sitting there, they were bagging on Obama, and the guy sitting there talking with him, and I turned around and I said, you know, it's not like there's any real politicians that you can cite as being really honest. All politicians are a bit crooked in their own ways. They have their own reasons of doing things.
Well,
you can't sit there. And the woman turns to me and she says, no, Ronald Reagan. And I turned to her and I said, Iran-Contra affair. And she just stopped, dead in her tracks, and said, how did I forget that? Welcome to propaganda. Welcome to the way the cultural mindset changes and its definitions. Yeah.
Plunder in Beirut.
Oh, yeah.
I was in the Marine Corps when that crap happened.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, the image that we hold these people up to as time passes changes radically from who they were. And now people are upholding Reagan as supporting whatever crap they want him to support, even though you can just look back in history and say, no, he would not have supported that.
Well, didn't he, like, triple the deficit?
Oh, yeah. That trickle-down economics thing really was pissing on the poor. It was horrible for the economy.
And he fucked over the goddamn veterans.
Oh, yeah. But these things somehow have been edited out of history.
We need to return the spitting image version of Reagan.
But, I mean, that's the thing is
knows what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No, poetic justice is that he died of Alzheimer's. He died eating his own poop.
Yeah, pretty much. And
look at all the American history books that have the War of 1812 in it when the U.S. tried to invade Canada and lost.
Well,
look at all the history books.
What? We tried to invade Canada? I don't remember reading
exactly.
Find a history book.
Did.
We did, but that's been pretty much edited out of our history books. And Texas and some other states are trying to edit even more out. They're trying to edit out slavery, for fuck's sake.
Now they're
that's
trying to say
twisted
slavery never happened?
Yeah.
They're trying to spin it in a way where it's not as bad.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and not only are they trying to spin it that way, but they're trying to make it out that the Civil War had nothing really to do with slavery. It was all entirely about states' rights, which is a dialogue they've been perpetuating for ages.
The slaves asked to be here.
Yeah, they've just completely gone off the rails with that shit.
It was G-Man's right. It was indentured servitude.
Yeah, they've completely gone off the rails in terms of some of the stuff they're trying to promote.
It was just
yeah. In terms of music history, they're trying to edit out rap and replace it with country.
Fuck that shit.
What the hell? It's just ridiculous revisionism. But I mean, if you look back with the Reagan legacy as it's promoted now, or even the JFK legacy a little bit beyond that, the actual people have been lost in the legacy. Who these people actually were is indistinguishable. You can barely see a trace of it with the lore we currently have about these characters. And you just know that, well, they might have been real people at the time. Now they're just caricatures of who they once might have been. And this is just a few decades.
What is this picture that Patrick's got here?
Let's see now. Where's
Golden Balls?
That is an image room of the sun.
No, I think that I looked it up. I think it might actually be a virtual reality kind of goggle things that you wear. And they said something like, "Explore the sun without getting burned."
It's the waiting room in hell.
Yeah,
I didn't know to be that beautiful.
The waiting room in hell just before judgment.
One of the viewers before the internet just made the note of nostalgia being a bitch and saying that people only remember the good things about the 80s. I remember Black Monday. I remember a lot of the bad shit about the 80s.
I remember some good stuff. I remember a lot of bad stuff too.
There's also another big deal pertaining to that, which is you go back to, you know, the 50s and what have you, and people talk like it was this wonderful time period. And it's like, no, you're remembering the TV shows that were supposed to take place in there, not the actual era. What's the matter with you?
The good old days, back when, you know, kids didn't play on the computer and all that, and they were always outside, and they had to worry about other stuff. Yes, like non-steroid.
We had polio, and you could...
McCarthyism.
Yeah. Legal.
McCarthyism. Oh, good grief, yeah.
Yeah, we had the Cold War.
There's actually been a couple politicians that have been trying to re-spin McCarthyism to make it seem like it was a good thing. It's a modern day witch hunt.
When in the back of everyone's mind, with any day now.
Yeah.
I mean, you still got
nukes shoved up our butt.
You still have people on the right trying to use communism as their favorite boogeyman.
There's a whole shitload of Republicans, even over the past 15 years, that try to describe McCarthyism as a good thing. It's been a while that they've been trying to have a revisionist vision of that.
Hi, Jackie.
It's not a revisionist vision. I mean,
and the further you go back, the greater the racism was.
It's when you guys say revisionist, at the time it was popular at the time. So, what you mean is it's not a vision that
it doesn't comport with the reality.
Yeah, and back in the 80s, every gay person you ever met.
Technically, is when you go back and you try to change, you know, what the history was. But this is not a change. If it's anything, it's a change the other way to liberalism, because the history at the time had very high support for McCarthy. The low support for McCarthy is, I wouldn't say a revisionism because that would be antagonistic, but it is the major change is away from McCarthyism, not to McCarthyism.
No, it's looking back at history and saying, wow, what the hell were we thinking?
No, that's not. No, well, I guess in a kind of just like kind of a discussion session on the left or on the right where people are encouraging each other in a particular view. Yeah, but revisionism is when you take the history as it was written and then you rewrite it in a new way.
And there have been people doing that pertaining to the Civil War as well as McCarthyism.
Right. But McCarthyism. I don't know if you guys are interested. I mean, it could be just you're kind of encouraging each other in a common worldview. But the facts, I mean, sometimes that's interesting, is that McCarthyism was much more supported in the original history writing than it is today.
Well, yeah, but
it might have been supported at the time, but I mean, when it comes to what it actually accomplished and what it did, there are people on the right that will make it sound like, oh, it did all these great things, but then when you look at the facts, it did terrible things.
Right, but
that's the revisionism we're referring to.
Sometimes people, I don't know, I may be interfering with just a general agreement session, but I mean,
no, we're not trying to like fool ourselves with stuff. We're like sitting here.
I would ask, I mean, you could imagine people sitting around saying, this is revisionism and this is revisionism, but the question is, are they really talking the truth? I mean, is McCarthyism revisionism to the right or revisionism to the left? And I'm saying,
how many people's lives are obviously? Hang on a second. Hang on.
Yeah, please. It's obviously revisionism to the left.
How many actual people that were spies were caught courtesy of McCarthyism?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what your real interest is, but it's no. I don't know. I would discuss it with you, but I would say the actual facts are that McCarthyism was highly supported in the original history writings, you know, and now the revision, if there's any, is to the left. Now, if you want to, I don't want to be, you know, unpleasant. I'm just saying this is what
we're not playing right left. Hang on. I got to specify something. We're not playing right left games here. We're not doing that in this hangout. What we are doing is we're just discussing how interpretations of things change over time.
Okay, they are changing, but it's changing. So revisionism to the left, not to the right. I mean, I'm not trying to be provocative, but isn't that the fact?
No. Okay. What we're talking about is right-wing textbook publishers in Texas and other places changing certain aspects of American history. And as far as McCarthyism goes, we were talking about how it's being painted as it was a good thing, not talking about it in the historical context. But
no.
it's
Well,
being
okay,
treated
but
as being a good thing.
I'm just saying that you guys said like 20 times. You're saying McCarthyism is being revised, and it's a revision of history.
Okay,
I don't think
wait.
I don't think that's factual.
In terms of actually catching people that were actually spying on the U.S. government, there were almost no results from that. However, in the process of it, it ruined dozens and dozens of lives. A lot of them being in Hollywood, or basically anyone that spoke up against him. Their lives were effectively ruined by it. Yet there was only, I believe, 2, maybe 3 cases, and 2 might be generous, frankly, of people that were legitimately spying on the government that were caught by it. It was almost completely ineffective, and it's been being respun by certain people to try and claim that it was very effective, which statistically it wasn't.
Well, let me give it a try, Mike.
The thing about this happening is, I'm just going to assume that when you say things like respun and revision, that you just are saying you don't like it, but the fact is it's revised to the left, not revised to the right.
Mike, let me give this a shot. Can I please try to give you?
Oh, hang on, Patrick, take the floor.
Let me give this a shot, Mike. It doesn't matter which side you see it. What we're talking about is changing it from truth to false. In other words, making it sound like a good thing when it wasn't, or just simply removing some of the facts so that we don't have to be embarrassed by those facts. In other words, if you're going to revise it in your saying, we could say, well, sure, a lot of people supported it that back then, but then we realized it was, but that's closer to the fact. But what we're talking about, revisionism, is revising it so that they can hide some of the horrible things that we've done.
Well, if you want to say that, I mean, a word can mean whatever you want, but if you look up revisions, what's happening is you may be right, and maybe it's a terrible thing, but revisionism, for most people, have a meaning. That's when you change what used to be true to a new truth that wasn't in the history books before. And that is happening, but it's happening to the left and not to the right. You can look at the history books.
Hang on, wait a minute.
The government has sealed files on a lot of things, like even Abraham Lincoln's assassinations.
Yep.
You can't get the actual facts of that from the government because they sealed it, and it's like more than 150 years later, and then you still can't look at the files on that.
The thing is, when we're talking about the tendency to revise history, what we're talking about is the changing paradigms as things go on. One of these is cited, for example, I was referenced in the chat, that a lot of people only remember the positive about the 80s and forget the negatives and this kind of stuff. And for some people, it's just the inverse of that. Reagan, the Ronald Reagan that is referred to now in the media, is very far from the actual real president that we had.
Well, yeah, most of the people that are talking about Reagan were probably little kids when they.
I like the conversation. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But I noticed that let's take slavery for example. Now maybe if I say something like slavery was very popular at the time, slavery was very popular for 50, 100 years after the time. The history books were pro-slavery. So I mean, if I say that, and then I say, well, and it is changing, but the modern history is a revision, I think I may wind up irritating you. I notice I don't have any support from anyone, so I'll just stop saying it.
Well, no.
But are you in support of blatantly saying slavery didn't happen in the country?
It's a big deal.
That's the revisionism that we're talking about.
Yeah, and in Texas, they're trying to edit slavery out of the dialogue in the textbooks. That's what started this.
Yeah. Why? Are they afraid that it would offend the black community if they did? Or the black students?
No. I have no fucking clue. No, it's about painting America and American history in a much better light than it actually is.
I didn't even know slavery existed until I seen it in a history book.
Yeah.
When I was little.
Yeah, but Texas has been going through the books trying to revise the sociology curriculum. Actually, those revisions serve me even more than the science.
But
I was like 10 years old when I read that in history class.
Yeah,
I was shocked and horrified. I was like, oh my God, I just knew that black people looked different. I didn't really think.
The point of having things in the history books that show that things weren't always bunnies and flowers is so that we can learn from the past and become better. And taking some of that out, I feel, is detrimental to us being able to learn these lessons.
You also got to look at your audience too. Like you don't want to show a bunch of 8 and 9-year-old kids, you know, that how horrible they were treated.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I would say, I'm trying to think about how to best communicate, but I would say that the tendency to put in more information about slavery is actually could be proven that there's vastly more information in every decade since slavery than when you began. Because if you look back in the 50s or 40s or 30s, there's no information about slavery. None in the history books in the schools. So every year, every decade that goes by, there is more information about slavery than the decade before.
Yeah, and that tended to lead to a lot more ignorance and a lot more prejudice.
Yeah, but I'm kind of. I hope I'm a friend to the community, but you know, you're saying that they're taking it out. There's less of it. They're putting it in. There's more of it. And
no,
you're saying it.
No, actually, in the Texas textbooks, they're trying to dampen it down as much as they can, and this is what I was addressing.
Okay, now who are these textbooks for?
These are for students in public schools, middle schools, high schools predominantly.
And not just Texas students. Texas is the biggest publisher of high school.
Biggest purchaser, so the publishers tend to cater to Texas. However, this time around, there have been a number of publishers.
They're taking out, and to what audience is it being revealed to? Because you're not going to be able to revise it because it's all over the internet. It's in encyclopedias. It's like the information's out there.
So I'll ask.
I still don't want schools teaching false history.
Yeah. How many? There's like 4 people participating in the conversation actively, and I would just ask people, what do you think? I know Shadow. I want to be friendly, but I want to ask some other people. I mean, every decade. Let's start with the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Does every decade have more information about slavery than the decades before? I say it does, but does anybody else think that's reality?
I think there's more information.
Give me a week and I'll get back to you on it with
I'd have to research it properly.
Yeah. Every subject.
So Dave and I, we're not trying to
the internet. Like for example, there could be somebody who say owns an old bookstore and they've inherited it, and there's a lot of, or they might be expert or have a hobby in this particular field of history, and they have access to the internet and they can write up papers and stuff. The problem is when you get into where people say, well, that's his opinion of it.
Right.
You know, but the information's out there. You just got to decide what's authentic and what isn't.
Right. Shadow, I know I've seen you around and I've talked to you. I think you're a very reasonable person. But I'm going to say, as far as my perception of what's happening is if you started in the 50s and you actually counted the number of pages in official school textbooks that deal with slavery, every decade when you counted, whether you counted individual states or all states or textbooks in any grade level, that all of them would be rising in the number of pages that dedicated to slavery in every decade.
I would need to.
What we're discussing here.
Yeah, but
that's an odd correlation.
Jackie's saying something in the side chat here that slavery and sex trade are the same thing. I don't quite agree with that.
Oh, that's not what she's saying. She just didn't word it very well. A lot of modern slavery does happen in the sex trade, in sex trafficking.
Okay, that's another kind of slavery. I mean, I don't think that they're going to make a sex slave work themselves to death in an ice paddy or in a sweatshop.
Okay, I'm going to read an excerpt from an article here. After a little more than a year after the conservative-led State Board of Education in Texas approved massive changes in its school textbooks to put slavery in a more positive light, a group of Tea Party activists in Tennessee has renewed its push to whitewash school textbooks. This group is seeking to remove all references to slavery and mention of the country's founders being slave owners.
Yeah. Well, I understand your concern, but I guess Shadow, if we talk, you could just like present your point of view and then tell everybody else that their point of view doesn't count. But my point of view is people are concerned about this. They do write about that. That's a concern. But the fact is that there's more negative information about slavery in the textbooks. I mean, it's not enough. It's not the way they like it.
But when you have groups actively trying to change that so that the textbooks will not be that way, that's a problem.
It's a problem. But I would say that the general trend is to more information about slavery and more negative. I know that there are people who are going to write that, and it's somewhat true, but that generally slavery is much more condemned now than in any decade before, and that's been progressive.
I'm actually not seeing, if you'll excuse me, I'm not seeing...
revisionist, or do you think that's more us going towards more of the truth of what the way things were?
Incidentally, I'm not seeing anything online. I'm taking a look through, and I'm not seeing anything indicating whether there's been more or less references or what have you.
I would say that.
Hold on, please. That's not the point of this revisionism. Is not to paint slavery in a good light. It's to paint America in a good light. It's a pro-America.
But I would also say, to answer Mike's direct question, that I think it's not just slavery, but all information, because of the technology, because of what we're doing right now, is much more proliferant. You know, in other words, there's more out there to gather. So hopefully more of the truth will come out there. Well, it's still a problem about rewriting history and trying to make America look in a good light and trying to hide our embarrassments, etc. So forth. And that's still going on.
Yeah, no, I think it's really a matter of your point of view. I mean, if somebody were on the far right and somebody were on the far left, they are going to have these perceptions. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, what validates these perceptions? I think both sides are going to say, well, obviously, my perception is right, therefore that is validated. And I think that's probably as far as most conversations go. But if you looked at like the general opinion of the public, the general opinion of the public is more negative against slavery in every decade since the 1900. Since 1900, it's more negativity, and the schools. So I know what you're saying. You're saying you don't like the kind of right-wing tendencies that are seen in some textbooks, but generally there's more left-wing. I think more left.
Wait, that's really not what's being said here. You're making it right-wing, left-wing.
I'm having a problem with this too. So I'm just
as somebody from neither left nor right, but from the north of the U.S., the fact that history would have a part of history removed to affect another part of history to make it look better is no longer history.
Mike, the truth is not an opinion poll.
Yeah, it's
the truth is not what just any small group of people say it is. So it's kind of difficult. I mean, you could take the point of view.
The truth is what happened.
Well, you can take the point of view.
Mike, it's not a point of view because it's not because the truth is not a point of view. And neither is an opinion poll. That's what we're trying to tell you. We're trying to do
a bunch of stuff, but we're talking reality.
Problem of things being changed deliberately to lie.
We're talking about presenting fact as opposed to opinion or agenda.
Okay, well, I mean, if you take the point of view that you and a certain group of people are going to be presenting the truth and the facts, and you're just encouraging each other, and that's good. But there are going to be people who have a different point of view, and they're going to get together, and they're going to reassure themselves that they're presenting the truth and the facts. I guess you can just say, well, we don't really care. We're here to encourage ourselves, and we don't really want to hear from them. That's kind of what's happening.
We want to know what really happened. We don't want to try to paint the United States as some wonderful thing. We want to know what really happened. There are some groups that their main interest is painting the United States as wonderful, beautiful. The startings of the country were beautiful, and it's not really the case.
The thing is, we've done some shitty things, as has everyone else. And if we ignore the fact and pretend that these things never happened, we will not learn from that part of our history.
Yeah. Okay, I do want to take some slight objections to this man saying America is not some wonderful place. Now, I know it's not like Wonderland, but I mean, when you look, whatever time period of history you look at, by comparison, the United States is was a preferable place to be.
Yeah, you have to think, Shadow, you have to think, if there are other people in the world who think their truth is truth, how are you going to relate to them? Are you just going to tell them, hey, shut up, I've got my truth, I told you to shut up?
It's not their truth, his truth, her truth, it's the truth.
Now, Patrick, your idea is that, what's the Ku
No,
Klux?
it's not my opinion. It's not
I know,
my point
I
of view.
know. You can just talk.
Find out what is the actual truth.
Right.
We want to be able to put that in textbooks as the truth, whether or not it makes us look bad, good, or somewhere in between. It doesn't matter about opinions. We want to know the actual truth.
Hang on a second.
Patrick, there's no way to actually obtain exact. I mean, you could say, well, whatever I think, whatever Patrick thinks is going to be the truth. And I know you're going to shout over me, no, you don't understand this opinion. But the truth has to be discovered by people, and that turns out to be people who have opinions. And unless you have an angel come down,
I know is a three-edged sword. There's my truth, your truth, and then there's the facts, and we're talking the third blade here.
Right. But what are you going to do? You have to decide how you're going to talk to people who think that you don't have an angel. They think that they know the truth. You can just say no to them, or you can try to discuss things with them.
An angel? What are we? What?
I'm walking away from this conversation for about 10 minutes.
I'm saying ultimate truth. I'm saying ultimate truth. How do you know it? You could just have somebody who's very assertive on the left, or somebody who's very assertive on the right, and they just tell the other people, no, your truth is not truth. Yes, my truth is.
You find the truth by compiling facts.
Right.
Yeah.
I did point out to you some of the things you're saying could benefit from dialogue. Like, is it revisionism to the right? And the facts are, it's revisionism to the left, and that can be shown factually. And maybe it's good revisionism, but it is revisionism.
It's words.
Yeah, at this point, I think it might be.
All right, I'll let you guys talk among yourselves. You just agree among yourselves, and I won't say anything.
That's cool.
I don't know what happened.
I think the problem is we have people that are dedicated to this notion of us versus them. And when you're talking about, trying to get closer to the reality of a situation, what you go through is you try to sit there and without bias go through and analyze the circumstances. And in some case, there might have been some things that were very popular at the time or what have you. But as we look back at them through history and see what effect they really had on us as a culture and what have you, we can compile varied data to come to more accurate conclusions. For example, this whole thing with the torture that we were doing, the waterboarding and all this kind of stuff, that there are a lot of people sitting there saying, no, this is the right thing and this is the wrong thing, and they can argue amongst themselves till the fucking cows come home. But until we have the data in and we can look back at it and say, well, this either did or didn't accomplish its end goal, until we can look back with that 20/20 hindsight, that's when we can really evaluate whether this was something that was worthwhile or not.
I do agree with you. Let's take a case where I agree, like slavery. I agree that slavery is bad. I agree that it's badder than it's reported. I agree that it's underreported. I agree that the textbooks don't tell the truth about slavery. It should be worse. I agree there should be more in the textbooks. So we agree on every point. But here's what I'm saying, is that the textbooks are doing more in every decade than they've done before. And the opinion is moving away from slavery to the left in every decade. So we don't agree on whether it's good or bad. We just agree on whether it's more or less reported.
But what I'm saying is that there are groups that are trying to undo that.
No. And I don't think that's really. You're really saying that it's going the wrong way. It's really going the right way. It's going towards it, not away from it.
It's going towards trying to put a positive spin on slavery in Texas, and trying to take out all references in, what was it, Tennessee, I think it was?
Okay. So we agree on all about how bad it is, but I am saying, I mean, I've got to be a little bit careful with you because I'm not sure you really want to hear something that's different. But I'm saying in every decade, it's the opposite of what you're saying. It's moving away from approval of slavery. It's moving towards condemnation. Now, I'm sure there are people who write, and I agree with those people who write, that it's bad, they're trying to change things, they're trying to take things out. And that's true, but they're not winning. They're losing. It's going the other way.
But they are winning. That's what I'm saying. In Texas, in Tennessee, they're still fighting it. But in Texas, they've managed to get approval in the textbooks to put a positive spin on slavery.
What positive spin are you talking about?
Let me actually see if I can get an article up. Hang on.
But okay, so I think it's just like saying that you're losing the war when we're really winning. It's better. It's getting better every decade. We are winning. There are fights. There's still struggles. There's still people who do things that we don't want them to do. But it's actually getting a lot better every decade. And they're telling more of the truth. It's looking worse for slavery every decade.
But that's not what this particular revisionism in Texas is about, and that's what
Yeah, but the thing that I'm having a difficult time wrapping my mind around is that the people who are making these changes that you're talking about, they know that they can't control all the information. So
no, they're losing. They're losing ground. They're fighting.
Going to be looked upon as being idiots if they try to say change history when we've got so many other sources out there that contradict them. So I don't know how they think they can get away with something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to point out, Shadow, that I want to be friendly. I want to talk. I actually agree with you on these things. But I notice that you don't welcome other people's different ideas.
I don't get that.
I don't get it either.
Yeah, but I didn't hear you welcome anything that I said. You didn't say, I welcome those three. But you could do it. It makes it hard to talk.
What you said was a dance. That's the thing.
So Oakley, if you disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean you have to say no, no, no. You can try to encourage them to participate. I mean, you can just say, "Hey, this is my space. I don't want to hear it." Or you can say this.
We tried to engage you a couple of times, but then
I don't understand where
you
this is
went
coming
on
from.
different tangents, sir.
I don't understand why you're saying this.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't get that at all from Shadow.
All right. I'm saying that I do, but I'm just mentioning it.
I mean, he didn't tell you you couldn't voice your opinion.
Yeah.
He didn't kick you out of the room for it.
Yeah. Okay.
He just disagreed with you.
I just okay.
Or am I making a mistake here?
No, I think that a variety of opinions can be allowed. I'm just kind of asking for it. I'm just kind of negotiating for a condition where a variety of opinions can be expressed.
I understand what both of you are saying, and I think both of you have valid points. I think both of you are, for the most part, speaking truthfully.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just think you have a different perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand that just because you're a state and you change what textbooks say, you can't change what all the other history books in the country and in the world is saying.
Right.
And they're available. So if I'm on a school board, or if I'm in charge of a school board, and I say we're going to change what this textbook says, we're going to take this fact out of the history books, I have to be intelligent enough to know that those facts are still out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And they'll be found, and I'll look like it.
But the thing is, we can sit there and look things up online and find out things and what have you. That's great. That's fine. But when the kids are being taught incorrect things in school, you've got a problem.
Now, is it incorrect things you're talking about, or just trying to...
the two articles that I brought up here, Texas Board of Education tried to keep the word slave out of slave trade, and another article on how the school board is trying to pretend, quote, trying to pretend slavery never happened, and why your kid's school might be next.
What age?
Yeah, but they did not keep it out.
You're not going to tell a bunch of second graders that black people were put on slave auctions in the nude and whipped half to death.
Well, we're not asking for that, just acknowledging. But the thing is, they're trying to effectively write that out of the history books, and that's the issue.
That's not happening. They're writing it in. There's more information.
Not the Texas School Board.
Okay, he's got an actual article or something where they're actually saying that they're taking it out of the textbook.
No, the article says says they tried and they failed.
Well, actually, that's an older article, but in any case,
it doesn't change the fact that they made the effort. And
here we go.
And the thing is, he's right in that. If there's proof to support what he's saying, then he's correct. But in a big picture
the last
way,
draft of the
it isn't going to make a whole lot of difference, except making the people who put this effort forward look like idiots.
That's right.
I mean, part of the problem is that this is something that they have actually gotten approved a new curriculum. There were people that came in there to try and argue against the new curriculum. There were something in the department, I don't remember the exact number, of 13,000 factual mistakes that the Texas Freedom Network actually
is this the article?
With. Yeah, this is actually the Texas Freedom Network site. It has a number of things on there pertaining to some of the changes that were made. You can check the TFN reports and a lot of other stuff in there pertaining to it. This is a secular group.
So let me ask you, Shadow, do you think that in every decade there's been more negative information in school books about slavery in every decade? Do you think that's true?
Now, I can certainly agree that that's probably been the trend. Now,
this isn't about slavery.
No. The thing is, they've done a whole bunch of different changes. I don't know if they got some of the slavery ones in there. I just know that it was one of the motions they were making was to try to put a positive spin on it.
Okay.
In Texas and a number of places in the South, the quote-unquote Civil War has been the war between the states for decades, to the point that they presented as being entirely about economics and not having to do with them wanting to keep their slaves. And this is a dialogue that's been promoted down in the South for quite some time.
Right. So I think it really, I know some people will assert that there is an ultimate truth, and I do agree with that. But on every one of these issues, how will we determine what goes in there? I know somebody will start saying, well, whatever the truth is whatever the truth is, and that's what we've got to put in.
I like
how do you
picture?
How do you actually do it? What are you going to do when there are lots of other people who do have a different idea of what the truth? How will you proceed? What will you do?
There we go. Executive summary. Let's go to that one. Let's see. No writing standards.
I think the better choice than we have now is to have private schools rather than to have government schools. But
okay, let's go through the listing, as we are now apparently on this and way off track from where I was initially wanting to go with this. Let's list some of the factual errors in the current textbooks which they are demanding be made. The text mentions Moses and claims that the biblical idea of a covenant, an ancient Jewish term meaning a special kind of agreement between the people and God, influenced the formation and colonization and colonial governments and contributed to our constitutional structure.
What? Where did they pull that? Whose butt did they pull that out of?
The Texas Board of Education. From Perfection Learning Basic Principles of American Government, the text has a table entitled "Where Did the Founders Get Their Ideas?" The introductory section to the
they
table
got
states,
their ideas from the Magna Carta.
States when the framers set out to write the Constitution, they drew upon the wisdom of philosophers, historians, and economists. Here are a few of the people whose words influenced the content of that remarkable document. Moses is listed first on the list, followed by John Locke, Charles Montague, and William Blackstone. The concept Moses is alleged to have contributed is a nation needs a written code of behavior. The description of Moses includes the following sentence: during their years of wandering in the desert of the Sinai, Moses handed down God's 10 commandments to the Hebrews. These commandments now form the bedrock on which the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian codes of behavior are based. The full accounts of Moses' life can be found in the Bible book of Exodus.
My head is about to explode, man.
You guys are so fucked up. You kind of.
That is so freaking
Americans.
Everybody who has even a passing knowledge of history knows that our democracy and our government is based upon previous governments that we were familiar with at the time, and the democracy that we base our current republic on is based on mostly the Magna Carta.
So you don't think that what they're saying about Moses and that history is accurate? You don't think that's true?
Okay, let's see now. What's wrong? Unlike the contribution, hang on. Let me give you their counter, if you might. Unlike the contributions of the other three figures mentioned in the table, the contributions of Moses is highly nebulous and contestable. The passage neglects to mention which types of codified behaviors influence the framers, and thus makes it difficult to evaluate this claim. The framers, for instance, were not influenced by the first 4 commandments, which deals with matters of religion being the practice. In fact, notably, framers such as John Madison led the battle against government punishment for unorthodox religious belief, further stating that Moses handed down God's 10 commandments very close to endorsing a religious claim. Stating, for instance, that Jews and Christians believe that Moses handed down God's 10 commandments would have been more acceptable without this qualification. The text seems to endorse the truth, quote, quote, of these biblical claims.
You know, you just gave every fundamentalist Christian that's listening a massive hard-on.
I think that I probably can't discuss too much because this is not a good place for me to discuss. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. I would be willing to discuss it with you sometime.
Oh, incidentally, that objection to it, that what's wrong with it, that's not me saying that. That's from TFN.org. That's this panel of scholars that they actually assembled to review the text and give their critiques.
Yeah, I think there is something for people to discuss here, but I don't think it's possible to discuss it in this room. But I'm not hostile to it, but I have a different idea than some of you do, and I would discuss it sometime. I don't think it's really possible. It's not something that people want to discuss.
If you'll give me a moment, I'm more than happy to find the part that says that democracy was based upon the kings of the Old Testament. Would you agree with that one? Would you agree with that one?
What happened to the Magna Carta? Did it evaporate?
Apparently.
Oh.
Every democracy in the world is based on the Magna Carta.
Well,
and every governmental rule of law is based on the Code of Hammurabi.
No, only very tenuously as concerns Magna Carta. There's very little in British law that actually.
That's the very first sort of democratic document that.
Yes. But it's kind of like saying that. If you would say that all Western democracy is based upon Magna Carta, it would kind of be like saying that all Western architecture is based on the pyramids.
No. The Magna Carta was like one of the first actual democratic documents that we can authenticate. And
Western
democracy. Look, our government, the American government, was based mostly on the British model, mostly.
Yes, the British model.
British model was based upon Magna Carta.
No, it's not. It had very little to do with Magna Carta at all. Yeah.
Well, it was a British document, wasn't it?
What?
It was the Magna Carta was a British document.
Yes, but we disregarded most of what was in it by that point.
Oh, Sid, you did notice the light, right?
Okay, so what replaced the Magna Carta? Because it was first.
Red light's on.
What replaced the Magna Carta? Well, you've got this weird British thing of not really having a constitution. So it's a collection of laws and various other things. But to say it's based upon Magna Carta is
live.
Not accurate.
Yeah,
the Magna Carta has a lot more to do with our government than the frickin' 10 Commandments.
Yes, but that's setting a bar rather low.
Do you have any idea what the Magna Carta is, David?
It was a document. I know loosely. It was a document that some lords got together to try to take some of the ultimate power away from the king and give it onto some of the lords so that they can share the power instead of one person having all the power.
Yeah, you're almost right. The king had like total power.
Mm-hmm.
And the nobles, the guys, the landowners, were against because the king could always demand that these landowners give him more revenue, more taxes, without because the king can't be the king's always right. So what these landowners wanted was for the king not to have the total ownership over them as he has or as he had, and I guess the carrot was you know, we won't kill you, and we won't overthrow you, and there won't be civil war and all shit, all this kind of stuff.
Isn't that when they came up with the legal concept?
Further to Sid's point, King John was actually at war with the landowners who were really rebels at the time. They were essentially at war already. It was a rebellion, pretty much.
Yeah, it was a kind of a revolutionary war. I understand that, but isn't that when we come up with the concept of habeas corpus? Show me the corpse. Isn't that where we come up with that concept where you just couldn't just accuse something with very little, no evidence? You had to have actual iron, physical evidence of something. So that helped develop our legal system and democracy too.
Well, that probably came much later.
No, he's right. He's right. That part is in the Magna Carta.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, habeas corpus.
Interesting.
So I'm of the mind, now I could be wrong, but I'm of the mind that the Magna Carta has a lot to do with our democracies.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Magna Carta historically was already surpassed by, you know, in the year 1200, stuff like that. In 1100, there were better
documents.
Yeah, well, not better versions, but there were better documents inspired by the Magna Carta at that time. It was a big start.
Wasn't the Magna Carta the first challenge to the power of the king?
I thought so.
Well, it wasn't really. I mean, yeah. The king was. I'm sure Cider knows a lot more than me because he's British. But Magna Carta was basic. You got to keep in mind, the Magna Carta wasn't something that the king gave it, you know, because he wake up one morning and he felt really good.
Yeah.
He was forced to do that.
Yeah, it was essentially
either that or a bloodbath. You know,
yeah,
so.
I mean, you're right in the sense that there are some good precedents to come from it, but it was essentially a truce document.
Yes.
If not quite if not quite a terms of surrender, it was pretty damn close.
It was the concession that he had to make to his, you know, to the clergy and, you know, and minor, you know, barons and stuff like that. So
I would say that it's a codified rights that are given to people other than the central government, and that's a pretty big step forward. There weren't any codified rights before that.
Okay, now I don't know where they're getting this idea that the Ten Commandments formed our democracy, or at least was a real powerful factor in it. That's more along the lines of church. You know, and I mean, you can make that claim for church, but not for the government.
No, since I found it here, here's the fun one.
There's a lot to actually be said to discuss it, but I think I want to kind of be more academic, and other people, I'm not sure it's really that welcome. But I'll try to be a little bit academic. But you know, if I just get hit over the head by people shouting at me, I'll stop. But some people think, and I'm not saying they're right, but they think that the Reformation in Europe was a major event that affected democracy, because before that the church and the state were pretty much the same thing, and you had a pope that was like a king. But in the Reformation, individual churches became their own authorities, so it's more like a democracy. So you had this church and that church. You no longer had a king at the head of the church, a pope. So
when church, not government.
Right. Well, okay, you can say that, but I'm trying to say that at that point, church and government were the same, and so the idea that, I mean, I'm not telling you that this is right. I'm just kind of academically trying to say this is how some people think about it. Is that out of that independent church movement came the idea and the training and the pattern for independent government. In other words, a non-king type government. And
well,
so
I think what took place was that there were similar ideas in both government and church. It's just that they were made up of people of the time, and the people of the time had similar ideas, similar ways of looking at reality, similar ways of looking at life and processing information. So in the church settings, you had people who was leaning towards a more representative type of system of governing, and then they had the same thing in the political arena.
Right.
So there were two different entities evolving simultaneous ways.
Well, okay, so I would what I would say is that they're not. They were not two different entities. They were one that were devolving into two, and that's the way some people think about it. In other words, in other words, you start with one institution, which is church-state together, and then it breaks apart and becomes two. And so they're saying that this break within the church, which allowed independence governments within the church, multiple independent governments within the church, is the same thing you saw with the break in the civil government, that you broke from having a single king to multiple authorities within the civil government. And that's why they
you had people in political positions of power that were both in church and in government.
Yeah.
So even though they were both in one or the other, they had to tread carefully to keep their respective offices separate from one another.
Yeah, I know, and also that wasn't the main drive. I mean, because see what happened in England, they immediately set up the Church of England. The main drive to the Protestants to the Reform movement in Europe was money. There was no other drive behind it. If you go look at what Lutero wrote on the door of the cathedral in Wittenfurt, I think it was. I mean, look at that. Yeah, look at that. It's all about money. His first and foremost contention was that the church was selling indulgence, and that was a big money business. And he was left out and say, you know what, you shouldn't do that because I'm not getting any of this. So that was the main drive behind it.
I think you do have to say that Luther did have some theological differences.
Fibo, I think that a lot of people would agree with that, but I don't know what to say. What should somebody who, like me, who knows that is not the majority position, that doesn't mean it's wrong.
Well, you had several factors that work here. You had the economic factor, which is what this one's talking about. You also had like the average man on the street was becoming more educated because of the printing press and other.
I didn't get the end of my.
I'm sorry. I'll be right, but just to be extremely clear, Mike, I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. No. What I'm saying is that if you, in my opinion, if you go and say something like, that was, the major drive and stuff, so that's wrong. I'm not saying what you're saying might not have happened, but you cannot go on and saying that was, the major thing would happen. That the major drive was money, and that's a fact by his own Luther words.
I want to somewhere say that. It may be a fact, it may be true, but it's not clear to everyone.
That's a fact. No, that's true.
Well, when the other person is talking, and you just say, "Well, that's a fact. That's a fact." It's not. It doesn't give the other person a chance to express what he thinks is the fact. I mean, when you meet somebody like me, I would say that the majority of historians would say that the money was not the major fact. I mean, you could just say it is. We could go around, but I would say they're not. Now, maybe the majority are wrong. But the majority say that it was other things like doctrine.
Well, my problem is that I'm not claiming majority of historians are not. I'm just taking what Luther wrote, and this is what he wrote. Yeah. So if we can establish the fact that Martin Luther was the main, the first driving force in Reformed Europe, I mean, I'm going just by what he wrote. So, and this is what he wrote. That's why I said it's a fact. It's not.
No, I would say that I did read what you're talking about his treatise, which is the 1511 treatise. I think it's early 1500s. He nailed to the Wittenham door. I have read that, and I guess you could say that the majority of people who have read that believe that it has to do. And this is kind of refuting with church doctrine. What is true in the church doctrine? It does involve some things about money. Now, I'm sure that an atheist.
Okay, muting the Hangout just for a moment for the sake of those in the chat. I just wanted to spend a moment to say thanks for joining us. We're going to run this a little bit. If you guys start getting frustrated with this guy, just give me a general consensus and let me know. And I'm going to go back to the main broadcast now.
More informed.
Can I at this point just point out that just as to Mike as a pro tip for going forward, Just because Fabio is an atheist and makes the connection with money, that does not make it an atheistic trend to do so.
This is the same problem I have, and I think.
So, if I may finish, I mean, the thing is, I happen to agree with Fabio, but I think that he and I might well agree that there are other Protestant earlier figures like Jan Hus or John Hus, who you would say are much more theologically minded in their Protestantism as was. So just be careful not to equate the money angle with atheism. That's not accurate to do so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cider. I just want to add. that again, Mike. I want to remind you that besides what Cider said, that which is very important to me as well. You keep seeming to go back to the idea that the truth is an opinion poll. And it's just not the way things are.
I don't know how to talk to you, Patrick. If different people have different ideas about the truth, and there is an ultimate truth.
No, there's no ideas about the truth. The truth is either true or it's false.
I have met
it's not an opinion poll.
I know you have said that like maybe a dozen times. I don't know.
Because you don't seem to get it.
Yeah, I do not get it. But I don't know how to talk to you. I think that there is an ultimate truth. The idea that you are the possessor of this ultimate truth and that's your position. What happens when you meet other people who think they're the possessor of this ultimate truth? What are you going to say to them?
Well, then
I'm not talking about my position.
I have to deal with Patrick because Patrick takes the point of view that there's also.
No, it's not a point of view.
I know.
I don't have the ultimate truth. I never claim to have the ultimate truth.
I'm willing to
show me I have the truth is this is something I have in my hand is actually what I have in my hand. That's the truth. If you're going to ask somebody, well, what's your opinion? Does Patrick actually have that thing in his hand? That's not the way things work.
Yeah, now I let you talk. I'm going to say I try to figure out a way to speak to someone like you who is going to continue in that position. I don't know exactly what to say to you other than there is an ultimate truth. I do agree with you, but there are going to be very strong opinions on one side and the other that both of those have the ultimate truth. And I know you're going to come back with, no, you don't understand. There is an ultimate truth. I'm telling you what it is. But you meet other people who have a different idea.
That's just that you don't know what I'm going to come back and say.
You're talking past each other. You're talking past each other. You're much more in agreement than you think you are.
Yes.
You're talking past each other.
I don't.
You're both saying that you believe there is a. You're both saying that you believe there's an ultimate form of the truth.
Right. You're both intelligent and reasonable. I can tell that.
All right.
No, I mean, I do understand that you feel that there's an ultimate truth, but then you seem like you go back and go back to this opinion poll thing. You know, it's like. I don't get it. If you understand that there's an ultimate truth, then how come you keep going back to this? If you talk to somebody else, their opinion might be that the ultimate truth is their side.
Right.
There is no this side or their side.
That's where we disagree. I don't think we're going to resolve it. But I will comment. What, I can't say a sentence? I'm not allowed to say a sentence? I think
part of the issue is that there are other people that have been
Okay, go ahead. Please go ahead. Please.
I forgot what we was talking about.
I don't remember either.
I think all
I was going to say is that maybe when both sides of that little disagreement watch this hangout back, if they do.
Oh, we're trying to figure out how democracy came about.
Then you'll see that you're actually closer than you thought you were.
Yeah.
We're talking about how democracy came about.
I want to say sometimes people make references to majorities or they make references to groups that hold opinions. Even though those are not proofs of the truth, they are proofs of how many people agree that this interpretation may be right. So that's not proof, but it is relevant. In other words, it's what's called a claim to authority. Now, other people may not accept that authority, but you say most doctors say. Now, that doesn't make it true. Or most scientists say. Or most people who are on the President's Committee say. That doesn't make anything true, but people appeal to authority, and it is reasonable to do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they have access to more experts and more information than the average person, of course.
Well, you can appeal to the average person. You can say most of the average people on the street say, and that it's not irrelevant. Appeals to authority don't prove the truth, but they have a place in the conversation.
Yes. Yes. When the expertise is relevant, yes, they do.
Yes.
Well,
Appeal to authority is a way of finding, understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
Until you run into something better. I mean, that's what you go with.
Yeah.
I want to think the comments by Cider and Fabio. I mean, they don't represent my point of view, but I want to welcome other points of view. I like hearing other points of view. I like to hear. I'm kind of shocked by what they say, and I like that because I need to be shocked. So one of the things you said, Cider, that shocks me, which you think is absolute truth, is that it's not doesn't tend to be an atheist point of view. I mean, to you, you're going to be shocked. You're going to be offended I say that. But I'm good. I'm glad that you say that to me. It's hard for me to remember people think the way you do.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm not offended by the fact that you think that, because there are a lot of people who think that way. So I'm not offended by that. I'm a pretty thick-skinned animal, but I think often it's a question of people not taking the time to actually understand an opposing point of view, or at least not coming into contact with it.
So you think that the idea that the Reformation was driven by money doesn't tend to be an atheist point of view? That's the way you're thinking.
I don't think it's necessarily an atheistic point of view. No.
Okay, so like if you took people coming out of church and people coming out of an atheist movement, you don't think the atheist movement would say, "Oh yeah, it was about money," more than the people coming out of church?
I think the atheist. All right. Here's what I think would happen. I think that on the atheist side, you would have more people, a higher proportion of people than the average, that would say yes, it was about the money. But equally, I think there are some people within that atheist community who would say no, it was also about theology. We have to remember the two are not mutually exclusive here. You can have a Reformation about money and theology. And I also think if you were to go to a church gathering and ask people honestly, I think it would be more weighted in terms of the theological background. But I think if people are honest and look at the history, particularly in the UK where I'm from, they would say it was just as much about politics and money.
Yeah. So when I say that it's an atheist point of view, I think I need to keep in mind that atheists consider this insulting, and I don't really think about that, but I should think about that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, thank you for that. That subtle.
That was a beautiful segue.
I was going to say thank you for that subtle sledgehammer of a segue.
And I just realized that I actually had the secondary line muted. Sorry about that, folks.
Oh,
I just brought it back to the core of the topic here, which is how we build psychological models for people that we're speaking to or about or with, and how predictive those models tend to be or unpredictable.
Okay, I'm just an ignorant high school dropout with a GED. Can someone please tell me what it means?
Sorry.
All I heard was GED and then brah and is.
Sorry. I said I am an ignorant high school dropout with a GED. Can somebody please tell me what segue is?
Segue is
It's a scooter.
Statement that moves you to another topic when you're doing a podcast.
You mean derail?
Redirect is the way we prefer to refer to
David,
a segue.
what happened was Shadow just did a horrific segue.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the thing is, what we've been ultimately dealing with, I think, over the course of this entire discussion with Mike, is dealing with somebody who's addressing us while assuming a certain model in his head that he expects us to conform with to some degree. In terms of when he's speaking with people that are from a different perspective of his own, whether they be atheist or what have you, he has certain expectations of what that word means to him and has a model built in his head as to what that represents to him and how he thinks people like this would think or act. This links in with the theory of mind, incidentally, in which one is able to build models in one's head to, so to speak, emulate another individual prior to speaking, so we think we know how to interpret their responses.
There is a cloak of sadness which goes on me every time that happens. I mean, you cannot believe it. It is the most cock-blocking thing ever happened to me. I mean, it just takes me away the will of talking and with people in general. It is so sad because it is pointless, really. I mean, the moment you're talking with someone and he puts you in a frame just because he has got that frame that you should belong to. I mean, it brings away so much of the interesting things which might be said without that, really strict mind frame, which is, to me, it's mind-boggling. It is the ultimate waste of time, really. Yeah.
Whilst I agree with you, I do have some sympathy in the sense that we can't be open-minded all the time. We don't have the time. So, we form these mental portraits, these characteristics, these characterizations, because it's useful, and more often than not, they're correct. It's when they're not that they're
yeah, that's when they become cumbersome.
Yeah.
So, I understand what you say. You're right. The problem is that it's pure laziness. There is one of the most widespread theory on behavior is that we have two systems. It's system 1 and system 2. System 2 is the effortful system. It's the one which make us, for example, solve mathematic problems and stuff like that. Well, system 1 is the immediate one. Is the one that you use to react to things. Makes you say something which might be right or wrong. At first glance, without too many computations. The problem is that human being is lazy, so it relies a lot on what is called system 1. But knowing that you're lazy is not an excuse, in order for you not to overcome what your instant feeling is, and that's why it brings me a lot of sadness, when I see that, because.
Yeah, like I say, I share in your sadness in that sense, but I just don't think that.
Well, there are times that this kind of psychological modeling of the people that we're dealing with, or the people that we care about, what have you, is very useful. Now, granted, there are points that it kind of gets to the point of absurdity, as I referenced hours ago. Now, there have been points that I've been sitting there driving around in a car, and actually, my wife would be driving more often than myself in this instance. That I'm sitting there, and as far as I'm concerned, I've been sitting there having a conversation for like 20 minutes, and then I'll say something out loud, and my wife's like, "What are you talking about?" And I realize that I've been having a conversation with her in my head for 20 minutes without even realizing it wasn't made out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Don't disagree.
But in any case, the thing is, ultimately what it comes down to is how reliable your model is. If your model's only, 10-20% reliable at best, then the dialogue that you have based on that model is going to be crap, and it's time to throw that model out and just try and investigate what the people actually think or feel or believe.
what I was trying to tell you before is that it depends what you use that model for. So if, for example, I ask Cider how much is 17 times 25, if I tell him that the answer is 12, he knows immediately that is not true. Okay, even if I tell him, even if I tell him that the result is 98, he knows it's not true. Even if he doesn't know what is the exact number.
It's 425 if my maths is correct.
Yeah, so I think it's 28. Did you say 25? Yeah, it's 20. Okay, yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that there are various models and various ways that we can interact with things. Now, the one I was describing before is useful in some instances, okay, but it's not useful in others. So for other things to be learned, you got to make an effort, and your effort have got to overcome your immediate reactions. And if you don't do that, I mean, it's a pointless conversation, really.
Mm.
Yeah. Wow. So and I'll keep talking because nobody does, and that's this is why I understand what Cider was saying, but my point was a step forward to that. I'm not denying that what he says is true.
No,
it is true.
What I wonder though is in terms of psychological modeling though, especially with the certain disconnect that the majority of the room seems to have with Mike, I wonder what his psychological model as to what an atheist is.
Yeah, I think my primary motive is to understand how other people are different. I think I do learn that from talking to people in other cultures. For example, when Fabio and also when Cedar were objecting to me referencing their points of view as atheist points of view, that's good for me. That's good for me to keep in mind that's offensive to them.
Well, it's not offensive to me. It is ridiculous and it's funny. It's not offensive.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't necessarily an atheist point of view in terms of what percentage of a person's worldview is, so to speak, if we're going to use that term, which I think is a little silly to begin with. But if we're going to go with the notion of the quote-unquote atheist worldview, the amount of that entirety of the worldview that has anything to do with atheism is maybe 5%, and that's being generous.
So it's a whole new concept for me. I mean, the idea for me and many other people is that it's profoundly shaping people that they are atheists. Maybe that's wrong, but that's what they think. So it's interesting to meet you because you don't think that's true.
I always thought there was just one atheist point of view, and that was that they
please, Cider, let David speak.
God.
Sorry,
I always thought that was the only atheist point of view. Everything else is just everything else.
Well, the thing is, a worldview isn't, it is in a manner of the end-all be-all, but it's not centered on one singular thing. It never really is.
But
even
if you're going to classify something as atheist, that's the only thing you can classify. Everything else is just not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, your political ideologies, the way you see.
An atheist person can have the same understandings of reality that a theist would. If somebody has this attitude or understanding that money is like the major factor in most decisions in politics, a theist could have the same point of view. It is not restricted to atheism.
Yeah, exactly.
The only atheist point of view that I'm aware of is that they just don't believe that there's a God.
Now, there are very different viewpoints that can certainly give a bias in one direction or another, but whether or not a God exists, I don't see that as necessarily affecting much other than the view of separation of church and state.
So if I hear Fabio tell me something that he has a certain opinion about something, I don't necessarily think of it as an atheist anything. I just think that that's his point of view.
Yeah, but and you would be right, because that would be ridiculous, because I mean, just incidentally, the opinion I had would be the same one that Albert from Hohenzollern had, or Johann Tetzel, and there were one was an archbishop and the other one was a friar, which happened to live when Luther was living, and those were and that was the reaction to what they did, and they were not atheists, not by a long shot. So
I do understand I do understand what you're saying, and I am learning something about that. It's good for me. I to learn that. I don't know what to say. I know that me and my friends who are in the church think of atheism as being 90% of what the other person is. We do think that atheists are. It's maybe we're wrong, and you laugh at it. You think it's absurd. That is the way that we think about atheists.
Hey, here you go, Mike. Just look at my screen share.
Yeah.
That's all it is, really.
Can I intrude something here?
Yeah, I did look at that, Patrick. Thank you.
Can I intrude something here? I hear the term worldview bandied around a lot in this online community, and it's kind of bewildering to me in a lot of ways. But it strikes me that the atheists and theists have two very different ways of going about what a worldview is and how it affects things. A theist's worldview, it seems to me much of the time, it seems to be the center of what they are, or who they feel they are, and it feeds out into everything else. Now, I think with a lot of atheists, I don't know who's echoing, I can't really help you, but with a lot of atheists, it seems to be that...
Somebody's echoing.
I'm sorry, I'm really struggling because I'm hearing myself and it's really messing with my brain.
I'm looking for little green bars, I'm not seeing them.
Yeah.
It was Sid. No, it wasn't. Who is it?
No, it wasn't. Turn my speaker down. A little bit.
Well, I hear it. It's the person who doesn't hear it is the guilty party. I hear the echo.
I hear it.
Okay, that means...
Well, if everybody would courteously mute.
It was David. He didn't hear it. He muted himself. So yeah, you...
Okay, so yeah, the theist worldview seems to be at the center of things and it informs everything else. I think most atheists would say that their atheism is a component that feeds into their worldview. So my atheism is part of what shapes my worldview, but so are many other things, be it my political views, my social views, the culture I was brought up in, the history. So it's a very profound difference, I think, in the way that we go about thinking about what a worldview is. Like I say, so my atheism can, in some subjects and in some areas, inform my worldview and have a bearing on it. But it's not the full picture whatsoever.
Yeah, I haven't met you before, but I just put you in a circle. You're a very reasonable, pleasant person. They're respectful of other people. I like that. I think most of the people in the room are. I don't think I've met Fabio. I think I met Fabio once or twice. I'm going to make a note here.
So.
Okay. No, I don't have you in a circle.
Yeah.
I just put you in a circle. You're a very friendly person. It's pleasant to speak to. So I enjoy your comments very much.
So you see, Mike, the reason why I was a little bit aggravated, by your but what you said is that is basically what Cider said. The thing I think we must all understand is that the way we see the things going around, because I hate the word worldview. It just gives me. I mean, it makes me want to bang my head on the wall. I just hate it. It is more shaped by the kind of society we live in than from the things that we believe. I'm making an example. For me, the way you interpret the word, to me, it's more alien just by the fact that you live in the U.S. than you believe in God, for example. See what I mean? I mean, I found some things that are really more alien to me just because people live in different societies, got different education and different stuff, and this is way more, puzzling to me than the fact that you believe in a God or not. I mean, of course, if we happen to step into someone which is believing God the main driving, not force, but main driving parameter by which they live their life, and then I mean, of course, that's a point. But I think that when you're dealing with atheists, and I'm not saying about everybody, because I'm not speaking for anybody right here. There are very different kind of atheists. You might find, I mean, especially if you meet atheists from Europe and I don't want to make a too broad generalization, but you will find there is a big difference if you speak with people like Cider and me concerning faith stuff, because faith and the church and all that stuff in inner countries is lived way differently from what is generally lived in most of the US. It's more of a cultural heritage. Even the people which belong to a church around here, be they Catholic, Protestants, it doesn't really matter. They have a way more personal relationship with the faith than in other parts of the world, US included. I would go on saying, and I'm not making any judgment here, they are less vocal about that because it's more an interior experience to them. Yeah. So a lot of the conflicts that there are in the US, they simply do not happen around here. They're not part of the social tissue. It is not a subject which is part of the discussion.
Right. Part of that is because in the U.S. the religious community has a lot of control, and in Europe they are marginalized.
Well, I beg to differ on that. Remember, I live in Italy. We got the bloody Vatican around here, and it's not marginalized in any way, shape, or form. It's a different attitude.
Which actually has a state religion.
Yes, so it is a different attitude. It has nothing to do with marginalization or not. I can tell you for a fact that
I would say it's not so much marginalization, particularly in the UK. I don't know what it's like in Italy, although I suspect. But I think in the UK it's not so much marginalization as just sort of being left to get on with it.
Yes.
Isn't it true that in the U.S. all of the Congress claim to be Christians, and in Europe it's only?
That is.
So it's only in Europe they only claim it's like less than even half, present themselves as the Christians or something like that.
It is not a political issue.
Well, what I'm saying is it's not a political issue because here everybody claims that they are Christians. In other words, they have a lot of control here. I don't know. Maybe that's not right. Maybe that's not right.
No, what I'm saying is not a political issue. I'm saying it's not a political issue here. The fact that you are a politician and you claim yourself to be Christian or not has almost no direct result on the fact that if you will be elected or not. So it's not an issue as much as going on saying I got a wig or I got glasses. It's not something which is important. So
you're right. In the US, it is a political issue, and you're right. That's because the Christian right, particularly, does hold a lot of sway in certain circles.
That's right.
Which is exactly why I do what I do.
Which
is exactly why I claim to be insulted by certain statements. Which is why I claim that I've been hurt by the religious influx into the into the public school system. Because I went through that public school system and only later realized that I was hurt by it.
Yeah, I claim that the people of faith have been hurt by the atheists. So
how so?
That the atheists are the ones who don't put forward the truth, and it's the people of faith who do.
I'm going to ask you to further qualify that, please.
Well, I mean, in terms of things like science,
okay, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm sorry because I'm going to start screaming at you.
Well, that's not what you should do. You should just talk to people.
Okay, what are
I would
in
say,
terms of science, in what regard?
And also in terms of history, which you guys were talking about.
Okay, in terms of science and history, what are the atheists allegedly doing?
Yeah. I'm a little bit reluctant to enter into an argument. I can sense this kind of a desire for an argument.
No, it's what I would say. I don't know how often you're in this corner of the internet, Mike, but people like Patrick particularly. I suspect a lot of the claims, certainly scientifically, that you would make, Patrick will have heard before and refuted before, again and again and again, and the same people will come back with the same arguments that have been refuted. I'm not saying that's what you would do.
That's not.
You have to bear in mind.
I'm declining, to try to get involved in that.
Well, the way that I see it
is. But that's what I'm saying about people. I think that's why people often get their hackles raised.
Yeah, and the cloak of sadness, as again, dropped on me. It's.
The thing is, we run into this kind of stuff all the time, that the atheist this and the atheist that, and the kind of thought is, what the heck are you talking about, is kind of what comes to mind initially. And often it's followed by, is this going to be the same arguments we hear over and over again? It goes back to the truth is a three-edged sword thing. There's my truth, your truth, and then there's just the facts.
Yeah, I do like your three-edged sword. I like that. I want to ask Fabio. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's straight out of Babylon 5, but go ahead.
I like that. So, Fabio, what happened in Europe during the Reformation? The people involved, did they think that they were objecting to the selling of forgiveness? In other words, Fabio, you've done something wrong, and I will. If you give me $5, I'll forgive you. And they objected to that. They said you can't do that. You can't sell people forgiveness. That's
indulgence. By the way, is the term.
Yes.
Yeah, indulgence. Maybe they were deluded. Maybe that's not what it's really about. Really, it's about money. But weren't they en masse imagining that it was about the selling of indulgences, not about money? Fabio.
No, I don't know what the question was.
The question is, what was the Reformation about, money or doctrine? And isn't it true that the people present at that time objected to selling forgiveness? In other words, you did something wrong yesterday, give me $5 and you'll be forgiven. They thought that that's what they were objecting to, isn't it? I mean, maybe they were wrong, but it wasn't en masse. They were objecting to the principle of selling forgiveness.
No, it wasn't the people which were objecting. It was the people which were not getting any money out of it.
Well,
people like Frederick the Wise, or George from Saxon. Those were the people objecting. So
yeah.
Can I also just point out here that again, it's not an either or. You can object to something on political, religious, and financial grounds all at the same time and not have a conflict there.
Yeah.
There is no. I'm not aware of. Well, I can think of maybe a couple of examples throughout the entirety of history that would of revolutions or massive social changes that were down to single issues, but the vast majority would be down to multiple things.
Yeah. Well, I would have thought, now maybe my view is wrong, Fabio, thank you, Cedar, that I would have thought that the Reformation was hugely popular among the people. In other words, it was a very intensely supported by a vast majority of the general population. They were angry at the Roman Catholic Church, and they weren't angry because of some money issue. The idea that the church was selling people forgiveness for sins made them just furious. Now, you're saying that that's not your understanding of history.
Ultimately, that is kind of a money thing, though. It's the greed of the very priests that are willing to sell these indulgences.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
And it's not, and again, it wasn't the people. The people had nothing to do with that. The people, they were just passive in that. They were blind indulgences or not, they were passive about that. The main issue were the people which were not getting any money out of it.
Yeah, okay.
But also, you have to bear in mind that this kind of thing would have been known, at least on some levels, amongst the peasantry, because there wasn't any such thing as a press, to suddenly develop and unleash a big scandal on the Catholic Church. This was part of the fabric of society, part of the culture of the time. You know,
Well,
so
I think
it's not like people would have suddenly woken up to this concept. I don't think.
Well, I think it's a historical matter. I'm addressing Fabio. Also, you, Cedar, but I'm addressing Fabio. As far as I know, it's a historical matter that the Reformation was immediately accompanied by broad civil wars. That the civil wars were involved hundreds of thousands of peasants who were highly emotionally charged against the Catholic Church on the issue of selling indulgence. Now, I don't know. You think otherwise, but I'm surprised to hear that that's not the case.
I don't know. I would be interested to know if we have any documentation of how it was sold to the troops conscripted.
These were not conscripted troops. These were not armies. These were the masses of people rose up in civil rebellions that the church fought to kill. The people who were on the side of the church, on the side of the new church, the Lutheran church that was breaking away from Rome, they fought to kill their own supporters because their own supporters were rising up spontaneously in vast numbers to attack the Catholics for what the Catholics were doing in selling indulgences.
It wasn't a popular uprising, if that's what this is what you mean. It wasn't at all a popular uprising. And again, you know, the fact that the people which were more they jumped on the boat first, they were not the people. They were the people which were making any money, like Henry VIII in UK, or Gustav I in Sweden, or in Denmark, I think it was Christian III, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Those were the ones which decided, they jumped on the bandwagon and said, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna take all the properties of the church and annex to my properties.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the population which went in the churches and said, okay, this now is my house.
I think that the factual, I'm going to recite some factual information I believe is factual, is that the civil wars that were popular uprisings in Germany occurred while King of England, which you're referring to, Henry VIII, opposed the Protestant movement and killed and burned at the stake leaders of the Protestant movement in England. So I think that...
Yeah, Christians burning Christians for heresy.
Right. So I think your idea that King of England is leading, but doesn't match the fact that you have vast civil wars in Germany against the Catholic Church.
England
with King of England supporting the Catholic Church. Now, does that match? How does that match with your idea that the King of England is leading?
Well, Mike.
No, I haven't said the King of England.
I don't think Fabio would say that the King of England was leading any kind of revolution, and indeed he wasn't. He was at one point, as you rightly say, prosecuting various notable Protestants and burning them at the stake for heresy. But it basically came down to the fact that he wanted to get a divorce from Catherine of Aragon, his first wife, Marianne Boleyn. Right. And the Pope wouldn't allow it, wouldn't annul the marriage, and so Henry broke from the Catholic Church, basically on political grounds.
Yeah. It's good, Cedar, to talk to you. You're knowledgeable about history, and you're willing to actually discuss the facts that are underlying the assumptions. Fabio, I think from the way
I'm sorry, I've been asked to redirect, and I'm going to do so.
Right. Bye.
The curiosity is pertaining to this model that you have of what you believe an atheist to be and how they think and what have you. And would you be comfortable answering that question?
Yeah, I could do that. I want to, just before I do that, I want to say, Fabio, by the way you speak, I think that you're educated too. I would say that in my life, I have never met anyone that has the kind of education in history that would match yours. That all the people I meet have the idea that the Reformation was a vast uprising of the underclasses against the Catholic Church. Now, maybe that's not right, but you're the first person I've ever met that had this point of view.
All right. I'd be interested to see where that point of view comes from, that majority point of view comes from, because that's certainly not how it's presented over here in either in the history curriculum or in schools where this is studied quite deeply.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
I'm going to be rude for 1 second here. Hang on a second, sorry. With the Protestant Reformation, was there a major uprising pertaining to that, or was that more of an undercurrent in the church at the time? Do you remember that?
That's what we're debating. That's what we're debating. All the people I've ever met in my life.
I'm sorry. This is on an aside. Sorry, hon. Was it a violent uprising, more just an undercurrent in terms of popularity, or?
You're talking to somebody else?
Yeah. My wife's a world religion major.
Can we mute you, or I mean?
No, it's all right. It's pertaining to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm just trying.
All right.
More of an uprising in some places.
In some places, more of an uprising, but most of it was just Reformation. Okay, so the uprising was actually just in a limited scope then, in terms of the actual violence. Okay.
Yeah. I
sorry,
think
needed clarification on that one.
No, you're right. I think the main point wasn't the fact that we're uprising or not. The main issue was the fact that the uprising were coming from the population, or they were driven by people which were already in power or not, like what happened, in Sweden or Denmark or Norway or stuff like that. Yeah.
From what I know or think I know, the history we learn here is that in Germany, where the Reformation began, there were the two major groups: the Catholic Church and the new, just forming Church of Germany were the two groups, and then the peasantry were killed in large numbers. It's something like 50 to 100,000, which was large in that time for
in that specific region you're talking here, correct?
Yeah, we're killed.
But the thing is, the Reformation wasn't something that was just in one small region.
Yeah, but we're talking about what led it, what got it started, what were the motivations for it. But I don't know. Maybe you can impeach what I'm saying, but I'm trying to say what idea is here first. Is that in Germany, it was 50 to 100. It didn't keep a strict count, but 50 to 100,000 of the peasants were killed, and these peasants were opposing the Catholic Church, but they weren't killed by the Catholic Church. They were killed by the newly forming church in Germany, and they killed them because they were out of control. They could not control them.
If that's the situation given and the numbers of people killed, then I would seriously doubt that on a number of levels.
Okay, I'm being called out again for not stepping on your throat for redirecting. The question is once again, what is your model of what you believe an atheist to be?
I'm not sure what this question. I'm willing to discuss with you, but I'm not sure what the question. What is my model of what I think an atheist is?
Yes, when you think of an atheist, when you use the word atheist or atheist mindset or what have you, what are you even referring to by that?
Someone who believes in materialism and is largely influenced by. What's the term you use when everything is a result of something else? It's
naturalistic.
Naturalistic determinism. So I would say an atheist's point of view tends to be materialistic and influenced by determinism, and the theistic view tends to be the idea that these are only expressions of things that are universally exist universally. And that's a little bit hard to say. That's the idea. It's determinism and naturalism.
Well, there's also matters of things like the Jain movement, for example. A good portion of the Shinto belief, the Buddhist faiths, etc., as well as numerous other belief systems that are atheistic by nature in that they have no godhead, yet at the same point they have a very strong spiritual sense to them.
Yeah, so they would be. I think the Buddhists are officially atheists, but the majority of them don't practice that way. So you would say,
what do you mean? I'm sorry. What do you mean they don't practice that way?
In other words, Buddhism is divided into a number of sects. So the original Buddhism, which is what is called Theravada Buddhism, is officially atheist. If you ask them, they will tell you they do not believe in a god. But there are many other forms like the Mahayana and the Pure Land versions, and they tend to be generally more theistic. So.
Theistic in what way? In what way are you stating that they have a god?
Theism believes that there is a conscious mind responsible for creating the universe and intercedes from time to time in the affairs of the cosmos.
Actually, if you go, whether it be Zen Buddhism or what have you, most of the Buddhist precepts don't actually have any kind of real Godhead. Well, some of them will have notions like the collective consciousness, that all of our consciousness are intertwined in this kind of stuff. That's not a Godhead.
Right, so we would call them atheists.
Yeah.
So you asked me what do I think an atheist is, and
but they don't comport with your definition.
They tend to be materialists. They tend to be materialists, and they believe in...
the whole trajectory, though, is trying to become actualized in order to try and connect with the universe itself, so to speak. There's a lot of grand notions in there, like walking the middle path and what have you, trying to sit there and become more balanced in your life and these kind of things. These are not materialistic. These are as much spiritualistic as they are materialistic.
I would say that they are naturalistic and deterministic more than theists are. I don't know. That's probably not my definition. Though, isn't that the general idea that theism believes in causes that are beyond naturalism by definition, and theism believes in causes that are beyond determinism? Isn't that really the definition?
Strictly speaking, theism is belief in a god, and that's kind of end point.
Well, causes that are beyond naturalism, so just another way to express it.
Well, the thing is, there are other beliefs that do not have a godhead, that do not have this notion of some kind of god, that do believe in external causation as well.
I'm not sure what the conversation is about. We're talking about, okay, it's fine, but they are not theists, and you're asking me what is a theist and what is an atheist, and I said a theist believes in powers that are beyond naturalism, and an atheist does not. Isn't that a factual matter?
Well, actually, I spent roughly 20 years of my life, technically more than that, depending on how you want to look at it, walking the shamanic path. I'd never believed in a god during that entire time period. That would make me an atheist.
Yeah, you're an atheist.
Yes. Well, believing in things external of our reality, going on very spiritual journeys and what have you.
It's still an atheist. Well, I don't know. I don't want to argue with you. As far as I know, this is what the dictionary says. I'm not making this up.
Well, the thing is, the whole necessary naturalistic definition of everything, this notion of determinism and what have you, doesn't really comport with simply the non-belief in a god.
I'm not sure what you're saying. You could use any word you want. I mean, if we want to say any definition, it's fine with me. But choose one. I think, it's just a matter of semantics. As far as I know, atheists believe that in naturalism and determinism, and theists don't. I mean, if you don't like that,
especially not the determinism.
I said influence, but I mean, if you want a different definition, I'm fine. I'll change the definition. We just agree on the words. It's just a semantic, isn't it?
Well, actually, part of what I'm trying to point out is that the mental model that you have in your head as to what an atheist is doesn't necessarily comport with reality, and that's really what I'm trying to.
Okay, so let's think about that. Okay, so let's say that my definition isn't my definition the one that's in the dictionary. I mean, it's not peculiar to me, is it?
Well, would you like me to bring up the dictionary? I'd be more
yeah. I think the dictionary is going to say, by definition, a theist believes in powers that are beyond naturalism. There are other definitions there, but that's the basic definition.
I would be very surprised if that was the definition.
Oh, is that right?
A person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods.
Right, which means beyond naturalistic forces.
Actually, there's a whole number of people that don't actually believe in any kind of God, that believe in a rich spiritual world.
They're not by definition. I don't know. I'm not having an argument. As far as I know, they don't qualify as theist.
No, they wouldn't. They
would
so they're be considered
we're talking
atheists.
About, right. So you asked me what is an atheist, and I said naturalistic, and I don't know. Whatever the dictionary says is fine with me. And you're asking my model. My model matches with what the dictionary says.
I'm not sure it does. Not sure it does.
All right.
That's kind of what I'm questioning. I don't think the whole naturalistic, deterministic assertions are really appropriate based on the core definition.
The dictionary definition says nothing of naturalism or determinism. You may infer that from the statements in the dictionary, but that's not what the dictionary actually says. And dictionaries are not in the business of making inferences. I would put it to you.
Well, it says. I don't know what to do with this conversation. He says a god is a god naturalism or not natural? Okay, I don't know what to say. Okay, so I did answer your question. If you want to say that's some kind of misconception, I guess I could have a conversation. I'm a little bewildered. Gods are not natural. If you believe in a not natural God, you are a God believer. If you don't believe in a not natural God, you are not a God believer. So I seems by definition it's all about.
At the same point, though, you could believe in a rich spiritual world that is not natural by nature and still technically be an atheist.
Right. You do not believe in a not natural controller. I don't know. I'm getting lost. It seems to me God, by definition, is not natural. It's a power that is not nature.
But there are hundreds of other potential things out there that people could believe in that may not be natural.
And they are atheists, so that is the dividing line. As far as I know,
it's just a matter of whether one believes in a God or not, and it kind of starts and stops there. Anything beyond that's just an assumption about the person.
Well, I don't know what to do with this conversation. Let me ask this. Is God a natural power or not a natural power?
I don't think that's relevant to whether somebody believes in it or not.
No, well, I don't know.
Imaginary friend that he convinced other people to believe in.
Well, okay. It is a not natural power. I don't know what to do with the conversation. I can't understand what's happening. As far as I know, God is a power influencing the cosmos, and gods themselves are not natural forces. They are supernatural forces by definition. So as far as I know, by definition, theists believe in supernatural. Atheism believes
supernatural causation. But atheism's neutral on it. Atheism can go either way with it.
No, I don't know what to say. I mean, as far as I know, atheism believes in a not supernatural causes by definition. This conversation is actually. I want to be friendly, but it's just too. It's not working. I mean, I don't understand what's happening.
What it sounds like to me, if I may be so bold, is it sounds like you're locked into a paradigm.
Well, I don't know what to say. I think I'll have to be passive on this conversation. I don't know how to talk to you. As far as I know, by definition, supernatural gods are supernatural, and people who don't believe in supernatural gods believe in natural forces, and that's pretty much so basically obvious that people who are doubting that.
You're locking yourself into a black and white kind of view of things. Like you either believe in God and therefore you believe in all things supernatural, or you don't believe in God, in which case you're not allowed to believe in anything supernatural, and that's kind of the paradigm that you seem to be promoting.
Yes. As far as I know, it's absolutely true.
What if I believe in something supernatural which is not a god? Like,
then
for example,
you would not be an atheist. You would not be a theist. A theist has to believe. As far as I know, it seems. It feels the awkward conversation because it doesn't seem to match to pass the basic necessities for the beginning of a conversation. I don't know what to do.
This is what the thing is, and it's funny because you've kind of alluded to this without understanding the proposition. I think is a fair way to put it. Is that okay? You have a person that believes in very supernatural things, whether it be ghosts or whatever, that believes in things that are not naturalistic. Okay, fine, they can be an atheist. Yet then you go back to atheists must believe that things are natural.
Yeah, I think there is a difference between Yeah, I have to think about it a little bit, but I think the definition of theism and theism and deism are involved, and as I understand it, it's not just supernatural. That's kind of a gray area between the two.
Well, that would be non-naturalistic.
I don't know how to talk to you, Shadow. When I try to talk to you, I can't make the conversation work for me. I hope it's working for you. It's not working very well for me. I don't know how to talk to you.
That's kind of the problem, is you're trying to work the conversation.
Okay, fine. I'll be quiet. You guys talk among yourselves.
I think you're just coming at it from two different angles.
Yeah.
Well.
It was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before someone did that. Oh dear.
So, the preconception that you have about characters and such.
I don't think things are going to get back on track. I want to hand her the mic,
I
saying as
just
he apparently
tried.
can't understand communicating with me.
You weren't even listening. I just tried to bring it back on, and you're just like, no.
I handed her the mic.
No one listens to you, Oki.
Yeah, get used
I
to it.
know, isn't it sad? I mean, listen to me. I'm sexy sounding and all this.
Well, we're starting to get a consensus from the chat to kick his ass the fuck out.
Play nice. All I can say is I can deal with him because he's civil.
Yeah, but at the same point, he's so locked into dogmas that he doesn't even
He's
hear what he's saying. Never mind me.
In the room, by the way.
That's okay.
And hey, Red, welcome back.
Sip.
Enjoying the clusterfuck?
Decently. Yeah, decently. It's actually a weird night, considering that I have the night off, so I can actually participate in any shuffles that may be going on.
Yeah, I've actually been running this for, hell, we're going on 3 hours now, and this is after an hour-and-a-half hangout. We were initially talking about mental constructs, you know, when you're writing and you build characters in your head, so to speak, in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the other guy disagreed, and I was like, how can you disagree with that? I mean, do you not think?
But yeah, I thought it was kind of, well, the thing is, it goes down this road eventually, and you start getting the idea that, well, all this Jesus character is that these people are claiming to have personal relationships is just a psychological construct as much as anything else.
Yep.
And as we've seen here, somebody having a psychological construct as to what a certain kind of person is can tend to be quite unreliable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see how anyone can do anything without having constructs.
Well, we kind of have to. It's how we model reality and how we deal with people at all, yeah.
How we gain an understanding.
And I have a puppy driving me fucking insane right now. Good grief. What?
Don't tell Jackie.
He's being a pain in the butt. I think he wants out again, but she doesn't, so he's going to go out and want right back in.
Don't tell Jackie.
She will explode.
I'm going to take to say something profound.
You will go back.
Something profound.
Something profound by the wife of Shadow. Welcome.
Something profound.
Hi.
So what are your thoughts on duckbill platypuses?
They're fucking awesome.
Freak of
I
nature.
agree. Completely awesome freaks of nature.
Freaking awesome.
Okay. Be careful. Take a flashlight.
Squirrels just start laying eggs. That'd be pretty messed up.
Only because we don't have a gun.
Yeah, basically they're like echidnas but cool.
Yeah.
Take a sword.
No, I'll take this one.
Don't go alone.
No, I'll take the man gutter.
The man gutter?
We don't have guns. But
What, do you live in the ghetto country?
Take the samurai sword then.
but we do have a number of knives and swords laying around, and he was going to go outside because the last couple times that he's let the puppy out, the puppy's growled at something.
Ah.
He was going to go investigate.
Was it a shadow?
Yes, so he's taking one of our knives with him.
He should really have a camera with him, just that way we can see what it is.
A camera with him instead.
Just we want to see if he's brave or terrified. If he's like, oh my god, guys, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
What's about the puppies growling at the neighbour's cat?
He was growling at oxygen.
Cat jumps on his back. Ah!
I have seen coyotes in the area, so it's always a possibility.
Hi.
Hi, Oki. Is it pronounced O-A-K-Y? Is it Oki?
is.
Yeah. Okay.
It is. What's up?
I'm just saying hello. I haven't really. I don't really. I've met you only occasionally or not very much. I'm just getting to know you a little bit. You're in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I have met you before. I remember now. Yeah. Eventually, if Fabio is interested, I'd like to talk to Fabio again a little bit about history, but we'll have to see how interested he is in that subject, the Reformation.
It's actually 3 a.m. and I'm really interested in going to bed because I'm knackered.
Ah, you pussy.
Yeah, fuck you too, Reds. Take care.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sleep. Well, it's 2 a.m. here.
Ah, you pussy.
Yeah, shut up. At least I live in a sensible country.
I've got another hour.
Yeah, you live in that place called Not America.
Oh no, Red. You have to understand that Red's rhetoric only has two countries in his head. It's America and not America.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. All right. You have an accent. Where you're from a not America place. Where are you from?
Me?
Cyber. Yeah, Cyber.
Cider. I'm from the UK.
Cider. UK. I've heard of that. I've heard of that. Yeah. It's in the North Sea, right? It's an island.
Yeah.
Just that little place can wrap drops in an hour.
Yep.
So did Shadow's back?
There
He
we
obviously
go.
didn't get killed.
Yeah,
Welcome back, Shadow.
Yep.
Were you a man about it, or did you like go out there pretty nervous?
Nah, I put on shoes, went out there with a big old fucking knife, and said, "Bring it." I haven't been able to gut anything yet.
And then neighbor
so,
said, "What the fuck?"
Hey, neighbor's like, "Bring what, man? Do you need like beef or
well,
something?"
in my case, it's more like, okay, if it's a fucking coyote, I'll gut the goddamn thing. If it's a rat, I'll squeal like a little girl.
Yeah.
If it's a coyote, you'll come in with a new puppet, and then we'll all be a little bit disturbed.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, I actually was sitting there poking around on Etsy at all the very different animal skins you can get there, and I'm thinking, you know, I could get the taxidermy eyes, and I could... And then my wife gives me this look. And I'm like, okay, never mind, I won't.
Yeah.
So you've got Skeptic Squirrel, Fundy Fox, you can have Christian Coyote.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'd probably go a little bit different with that one. The thing is, I already have the two characters for... Well, the character that's kind of quasi in between, as well as Fundy Fox and Skeptic Squirrel.
Yeah.
And then we have the Mystery Goat.
Yeah.
The Mystery Goat.
Yes, the Mystery Goat. No idea what the goat's going to become, but right now the goat is imaginary.
Anyway, I will take note of what you were talking about before. That I guess you're saying that theists or people, people like me, have a view about atheists as kind of those atheist kind of assumptions. I try to keep that in mind, what you're saying, and it is good for me to think about that. I do think we kind of think of atheists as being a general category that if you're an atheist, it does make up like 90% of your identity. And I know we talked about a little bit about that. That's not the view of the atheists. They don't feel that way.
Yeah, it doesn't even make up more than 5, maybe 10% of my identity. I don't.
Atheism makes up 0.000000001% of my identity.
Yeah, I might learn more about that. I don't understand about that. I don't see that. It's not the way we think about it. I think that's what you're telling me. It's kind of a conversation about that.
Atheism doesn't decide what music I like, what food I like, what food I hate. Asparagus, fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
What soda I like, what girl I would or would not date. What shows I like on TV. I mean, how far do you really want to go?
Well, from my point of view, it makes all the difference in what kind of music you want to listen to, all the difference in what kind of girls. All the difference. Well, what, I can't talk.
Well,
so
it doesn't restrict those things.
Okay, but I want to say a sentence. I mean, I start to talk. You won't let me talk. As far as I know, it makes all the difference in what kind of girl you would date, what kind of music you would listen to, what kind of shows you would watch on television. And the reason I think that is because people who are theists, it makes all the difference. So, you know, for us, it makes the difference. When you switch over to theism, it makes all the difference. So that's why we think that.
Yeah, it may make a difference for theism, but it doesn't make any difference for me. For example, if there was a show out there that was God-fearing, I mean, I think Simple Man is an awesome song, and that's a God-fearing song, and I love that song. But you know, and if there's a girl out there that believes, I mean, the girl I'm currently dating is a Christian, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
my wife is
it's kind of interesting to talk about, Reed. I'm not invalidating what you're saying, but if there's a conversation about why people think that, in terms of Christian thought, it's impossible that you could be dating a Christian girl. Now, that's going to make you mad. You're going to tell me off that I don't know what I'm talking about. But in Christian ideas, that Christian girls cannot date atheists. They can't do it. It's not allowed.
No, how so? I mean, because it is happening currently right now.
Well,
it's like putting a Chevy engine in a Ford Mustang. You know, you can call it blasphemy, but it does happen.
Right, blasphemy. So I'm taking it and I'm listening to you. I don't have a rebuttal. I'm listening to what you're saying.
I asked my wife if she wanted to bother to address the Christian girl shouldn't date atheist thing, seeing that she's married to one, and she just shook her head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that I do is that there's this thing out there that says that atheists don't believe in ghosts or anything supernatural stuff. I actually like the show Ghost Adventures. I love that show. In fact, I want to go ghost hunting one day just to try it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing of Patrick, who was in here earlier when he screen shared his avatar saying that atheists, we believe in facts, that's all. I wish that were the case.
We don't.
There are a lot of...
I believe in a bunch of stuff that
who believe in a lot of nonsense.
Would agree.
There are theists who believe in a lot of nonsense, you know, whatever kind of thing it is.
Yeah, I believe in crazy stuff too, one of which is that I'm sexually attractive. But, you know, I mean... See,
well,
so we're not immune for crazy ideas.
Yeah, maybe that's true. You're sexually attracted to yourself. Maybe that's.
Oh, I love myself. I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, you are a handsome SOB. You know that. I mean, because when me being an atheist, I'm like, the only thing that my atheism has to do, it is a single position on a single issue, and that is the existence or non-existence of gods. And for me, I say I don't know. And if you have something that points to the existence of a god, by all means, you know, tell me and I'll be willing to listen to it. And if I agree or disagree, I'll tell you why and we can have a conversation about it. But for it to say that that one position would decide whether or not I think Justin Bieber is pure crap, even though I do think that because Justin Bieber is pure crap, I know people on both sides of the fence that think that Justin Bieber is pure crap.
Yeah, the thing is, atheism informs so little of my position, of what I do with my life. You know, it's so much so that I'm actually in a gospel choir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know,
I mean, you wouldn't know just by knowing that Sider is an atheist that he masturbates chronically. We wouldn't know that.
I'm gonna talk Shadow for just a sec. Shadow, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm going to say something that's critical about you, but it's not hostile. I know that you're not going to like it, and we're not going to agree. But if I said to you something that offended you, like you're an atheist, so you are a baby killer, you would be offended. Or if I said you are an atheist, and therefore you steal software, and you are an atheist, and therefore you promote toe sucking, you would be offended at somebody thinking like that. But when you talk about people who don't share your political views or your religious views, you demean them. You don't mean to. In your view, in your world, you're just telling the truth. They're lazy believers in fairy tales. They believe in fairy tales. You're kind of demeaning to them, and you think. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Cider, let us finish.
It's for
but so it is. You think you're just being honestly sharing from your heart that they're a bunch of believers in fairy tales. And other people don't do it as much as you do. Maybe you are truthful. Maybe what you're saying is real. But other people are a little bit more humble in how they characterize the other side. So that was a lot, and you took it pretty well. You didn't yell at me, so thank you for letting me say that.
I'm sorry, but that's not. I don't know what Shadow you've been listening to, because that's not my experience of Shadow at all.
Yeah. I know it's not yours, but it is mine.
The thing is that I, on some occasions, don't have any need to speak for myself.
Yeah.
Actually,
that was good.
If I may put somebody on the spot, Peripheral, how are you doing tonight?
What's going on, guys?
Just out of curiosity, what was just expressed, is that your experience of me?
Of you?
Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
All right. So I think it is subjective, and I think a theist may be more sensitive to it. But maybe I'm wrong. But
Peripheral is. That's why I asked him. It was very fortuitous that he arrived at the moment he did.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yep. Well, I don't know where Mike's. You know, he may know more about you and some things that you've said. Maybe he's extrapolating those statements from some past experience. But I don't know how to tie what he just said to you personally. I've just not had that experience with you.
But I do want to say you were very civil to let me say that.
Honestly,
Shadow.
I'm more often accused of being an accommodationist.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I, in addition to that, also spend a lot of time doing what I refer to as practicing pseudo-apologetics, which is going through varied potential interpretations of the scripture to see if there's a way to make it, well, more palatable in some cases. Also, when it comes to a number of people that have been running around here trying to defend slavery and whatnot, I'm the one that went out of my way to see how it was regarded in the 613 laws, that put up a video to let people know that both sides were wrong on it.
Yep, I mean, atheism is not like my main forte, nor is it heathens main forte. Even though it is one aspect of it, we just we believe what we do, and I believe that man did in fact land on the moon, and that's currently my biggest beef with a bunch of people right now on the tubes.
Is that right? There's the conspiracy people that say that man didn't land on the moon. It's kind of hard
and everyone. So I've been like debunking all those, but and by the same token, if someone says something completely foolish in the whole religious debate community, sure, I'll be first in line to partake in the conversation. I think the biggest, I would say 75% of what I actually am is simply calling out BS when BS needs to be called.
And Redline, much as myself, will call it out on either side, depending on where it's coming from.
Yes, for example, recently, Forbidden Fruit, recently.
Oh, fuck off.
No. We actually had a great hangout, me and Red and a few others, going after Forbidden Fruit for his quote religion is a mental illness horseshit.
I was in the hangout.
I know. We took him to the frickin' carpet over that. It was on Redline's channel for anyone interested in looking it up.
Yep, on my channel.
Now, if you want to talk about somebody that I do violently disagree with, that would be Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hey now, how's it going?
Darn libertarians.
Yeah,
you'll know Jeff. He's the guy that tortures puppies and eats children.
That's right. Puts them in blenders, actually.
Yep, he uses the Blendtec blender. Will it blend? That is the question.
That's right.
In there.
Yeah. Hi, Tech. Hi, Jeff. He has cats, I think, rather than puppies, and he's got those. They're like they're cross between a raccoon and a cat.
That's right. Yeah, I have a couple cats that I love.
He talks to them. Yes. You're the best. You're the best cat in the world. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Oh, you are so special. You are so big.
Yep. I mean, for example, like we had Roy come in recently, and he asked the question of do you know question, and the response I gave was awesome in my opinion. He says, "Did you know that the Earth was created first 6,000 years ago?" And my response was, "I know it's incorrect."
But I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, we have a wealth of scientific information, and there are a lot of people that get bothered by that wealth of scientific information and will sit there and try and push theological doctrines. Now, this isn't a Christian thing. I've seen this in the New Age movement as well. I've seen this in all kinds of different quote-unquote faith movements. And I say that in part because I'm including Scientology in that, in terms of the quotes.
I've been doing a lot of reading on Scientology lately. It's fucking weird shit.
Yeah, my old channel is full of crap on them. Anyway, but I mean, the thing is, almost
don't they have like ranks in the church, and the ranks are kind of like.
We're not getting into that right now. I don't want to get into it. But anyway,
I'll leave you a very good channel in the side chat to have a look at. A couple of good channels if you want to find out all that.
The point that I was heading towards, though, if I can try and actually get there, is that
no,
when you're getting shut up. Don't compare me to Immanuel Kant. What's the matter with you? He was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. Oh wait, no.
Heidegger was a boozy.
Lizzie Bagger could drink you under the table. David Hume could outconsume Shelton, Hare, and Hegel.
And Wittgenstein is very Schwein is just as Schloss as Schlegel.
Okay, get to your point. I want to see where you were going.
Okay. Anyway, now that I've completely derailed myself this time, ultimately the point is that when you're dealing with religion, it was St. Augustine years ago who made the statement that God, from a theological vantage point, this is of course, that God wrote two books, one being the holy books and the other one being the book of nature. And if these two come in conflict, it's time to reevaluate your interpretation of Scripture, because the book of nature is simply as it is. And if you go around and keep countering that, you make yourself look silly in front of the heathens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not a grand indictment of religion. It's just simply saying, you know, when the reality is people understand it doesn't comport with your interpretation of Scripture, do some reading. But I don't think that's somehow being intolerant of religious people.
No,
especially because it was a religious person that made that statement initially.
Yeah. I like that comment. The same one may be made that they're not a real Christian.
Yeah, I like that. I like that comment. That was a good comment. I didn't actually know that about Augustine, but I like Augustine.
Yeah, he actually in his own way is brilliant. It's a shame that a lot of folks I talk to immediately discount it because it's, well, he was a Catholic. Well, he was also heavily involved in motivation behind the Protestant Reformation, if I remember correctly, as well. But that's ignored because you have Saint in front, which I think is rather unfortunate.
Hi, Green Soul. How are you?
Hi, Armin. How's it going?
Hi, Armin.
How you doing, everyone?
Hello. Yo, what up?
Is anybody going to come on camera? I only Siders on camera. I like to see you guys. So.
Oh, I've also got a little bit of commentary in from the external chat, and No True Scotsman was referenced. There is a single No True Scotsman argument that I am dying to make, because just for the S and Gs of it, I would love to have a debate between Fundy Fox and G-Man as to who the real Christian is.
Yep. Oh, for my camera, that doesn't happen.
No, Red does not exist. He's a figment of my imagination.
I am a skull in the fictional universe of the internets.
No, he's a figment of my imagination. Don't let him trick you.
Not only that, you don't want to see me anyway. I'm missing like half of my face.
The bottom half.
Yeah, the bottom half.
Yeah,
no jaw whatsoever. How I'm making coherent words, don't try to think about it. It's nasty.
Because he talks out of his ass.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So Green Soul, you're wearing green. Is that a common color for people in your what is it, Sufis? Do Sufis like to wear green? Is that common?
I think that might be the color correction on his camera.
Yes.
But he has a color correction?
Yeah, everything's green in the shot.
But I guess I'd ask him anyway, because he has green in his name, and he likes color correction that's green. I don't know. So is green a special color for Sufis?
No, it's just contingent upon the order. So,
is it special in your order? Green is special?
No, it's actually blue.
Oh, is it? Yeah. We're gonna have you up on charges. You're in the green mode.
Blue, the opposite of red. The agony.
I don't know if you ever, there was a show on MTV where they had a couple of people I think they were teenagers, late teenagers. And what they did was they had a red house, and they put them all in the room, and they just put the cameras on. And supposedly the red actually has some form of stimulation and has something to do with behavior. If you look at red lights, because it actually catches your attention quicker than any other color.
Yeah,
actually,
especially
they've done
especially if it's coming
studies.
out of my vein. If it's coming out of my veins, I pay attention to it.
There's actually been numerous studies pertaining to how we respond to colors, and we found that reds tend to be more angsty and blues tend to be more calming.
Yep. I wonder why red's my favorite color. Don't understand it, but whatever.
Well, it's also the color of love.
Well, you look like you're angry in that emoticon you have there, and it's red.
Kind of pissed, which is true most of the time.
Angsty would cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true all the time. Although I do have a random question. Peripheral. If you can kind of expand on what you just typed in the comment or in the chat there. I don't know what you're actually saying there.
Sure. Yeah, I would say that, like, for example, and I guess I'll just jump right into evolution just because I find it so humorous. But if you were to tell me that fossils proved evolution or fossils give good evidence for evolution, I would say, yeah, that's probably, you could submit it as evidence, but I would say let's test those fossils. Can we actually test those fossils to put conclusive proof?
I could imagine this becoming a 2-hour-long conversation about evolution.
Well,
not with me and Red. I don't think we're going to take it there. I think what I'm talking about is yeah, we could spin it off in all kinds of philosophical directions. But if I were to ask you how old is the Earth, you would say.
I would say 4.67 billion years old or so. No, wait, 4.567 billion years.
And okay, and we could say, okay, well, that's just that's pretty general regarding the time. How many days ago was the Earth created, or you know, like that? I guess
we
the
can't get to that level of precision.
Right.
Yeah, take 4.567 and just, I guess, times that by 3.
Even then, but that 4.567 is an estimate based upon what we know in terms of the physics of radio metric dating practices.
Right. That there could be some like the way science works. You know, in the future there could be something more accurate that comes along, right? Like a new method for dating, and you know, just like the universe was at one point thought to be 40 billion years old, and they've whittled it down to what is it 12 or 13.7.
I don't think it was ever that long.
That'd be the universe 13 point something, or is it 14?
Well, it was
originally, it's 13.7.
It was originally thought to be everlasting, that it didn't have any beginning. That was the original.
Well, I'm talking about like I think in the 60s, scientists they were firm on a 30+ billion year old universe, and if you were, you know, so if any of us in this room, whether we're Christians or not, sat under their authority, we would then take what they were telling us and we would spread that to our friends. I'd say, somebody asked me, I'd say, well, my professor and science agrees that the universe is in fact over 30 billion years old. Well, science just kind of keeps evolving with the times, right? They keep getting more accurate, supposedly, in their measurements, and at the same time, their evidence, or their conclusions change. So right now, yes, we might, you know, like Red would be perfectly justified in telling me that the Earth is in fact 4.6 billion years old, but there may come a time where we have something a little more accurate and find out the Earth, say, is only 2 billion years old. You know, when does it stop? And I guess that kind of
it's the thing is, it's what we're doing is we're taking the slider of knowledge, so to speak, on that proverbial ruler of reality and moving it closer and closer in our understanding.
Right,
now,
I get that.
The amount that it jumps is usually not quite that dramatic.
Yeah, and now we can pretty much say, I mean, we can pretty much say as well as of now is that, you know, we were very limited in the tools, we were very limited in the maths needed, and you know, and the ability to work with those tools to come to as you know, awesome of a conclusion as we currently have. The thing is that now we live in a current day and age where we have the necessary know-how and we have the tools to pretty much have the most accurate estimate we've ever had. And
well, yeah, but that's not. Yeah, but science doesn't stop though. Science doesn't say, that's where we're at.
Science doesn't stop. But as of right now, what you're going to end up seeing is that you're going to see that the changes are going to be no dramatic whatsoever. It probably will be forever 4.567. It's just that what's after the 7. Well, and then what's after that number?
What is it based on now? When I looked this up, it's based on meteorites and also what, Big Bang, redshift. Are those the two main?
Microwave background radiation is another big thing too. Microwave background radiation has actually helped refine some of our understandings as well. After
let me be clear, Shadow. Isn't that the redshift? That is the redshift.
I don't believe so.
The
redshift is when you're basically looking out at space. If something's moving towards you, it will show up as one color, and it'll have more of a different color if it's moving the other direction.
Okay, so those are the three. So it's background radiation, redshift, and primarily though meteorites, right?
No, that would be for like the age of our solar system, because what happens is that all the planets were forming around the same time. Or I shouldn't say around the same time. They were forming at the same time.
Well,
and
our planets in our particular little chunk. Keep in mind that there are some universes that are older or younger than others. There's a lot more factors to it in terms of when the accretion is formed.
I'm just sticking within our solar system. So if you find a rock that's in an orbit around our solar system, it comes down and pays us a visit, and we're able to go ahead and dissect that rock to find out its age. You can then take that information and apply it to the Earth, being that it's made from the same exact stuff, forming around the exact same time.
Yeah, I'm going to insult you and also compliment you. Look at that! I just met Red, and he actually knows something about science. That's good. So it's an insult and a compliment. I'm just getting to know you. You're knowledgeable about this subject.
How does
it's kind of my forte.
I got a question for you, Red. How does accretion account for the fact that not everything in our solar system are why doesn't everything in our solar system spin the same direction? Why does some of the moons and one of the planets spin opposite? Given that you most likely adhere to accretion as the result of the reason for our universe or our solar system. Have you ever thought about that?
Or talking about their orbit?
Their spin.
The spin.
The spin, not their orbit. The spin. Okay. Which planet spins backwards?
So basically, if our solar system was the result of a coalescence of mass, for example, particles, whatever, over time, there's been a law that's I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head. I'm not a physicist, but
which planet spins backwards? Do you know?
Hang on, let me look at it. It's like one planet and a bunch of moons, I think. Hang on. I gotta look it up. I don't know the exact names, but according to accretion and
current theory holds that Venus initially spun in the same direction as most of our other planets, and in a way still does. It simply flipped its axis 180 degrees at some point. In other words, it spins in the same direction. It's just upside down.
Oh.
So it just moved upside down.
Yeah, they rotated different planes.
I can. All right, hang on.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that if you go to where a good portion of the mass of the planet is, because there is a fairly substantial mountain range and what have you, there are areas where the planetary structure is more dense, and over time it would have slowly moved, partially due to gravitational forcings of the sun.
That makes sense. I just wanted to touch upon something that Red said, and I think is really important in the type of field that I'm in. Tools. The best tool to find out the best possible explanation for a phenomenon. When I'm taking data, and if I see my data going haywire, that means something's definitely wrong. But usually when the data is actually being close, that's why I think you mentioned, like, we cannot find out the next day that the Earth is like 3 million years old. It wouldn't make any sense. But usually through time, if you look at the data and the data is very consistent, then it usually puts in a variable, not variable, validity, if I'm saying that correctly. So that's just my take on it, on the tools that we're using in order to explain a lot of the phenomenon that's going out there.
Say a little bit more briefly, Greenstole. The best tool is what?
To explain the current phenomenon, what's going on.
Yeah, but what is that best tool? Can you? I didn't catch what the tool is. What is the tool?
Well, there's certain tools of the scientific method.
The tools of the scientific method are the best.
That's the one I use.
Yeah.
And I think they're one of the most consistent, but there's other tools that are refining through time. And it's basically like a computer. You know, back then we used to have these bulky computers, and now we're having more sleek designs and more memory input. So through time, things, you know, refine itself.
Yeah. So I think the position of Prophet is that his young Earth theory does match science. That science, though, is just immature. So he's not arguing against science. He's just arguing that science can change and be immature.
Well, the thing is, when you're talking about things, you know, changing on that kind of magnitude.
Yeah, you're talking about a difference between 6,000 and 4.6 billion.
Yeah. I mean, here's my logic, right? So humans have only figured out a few things: how to kill people more effectively and how to deceive people more effectively. We can't solve the simple issues like world hunger, things like that, but we're good at telling other people what to believe. And so I guess, you know, when it comes to the scientific method, I would say, you know, if the tools that we're using, right, are consistent, giving consistent results, the problem is not in the testing itself. I think the scientific method is beautiful. However, if there's a if the testing method is flawed, then you're still going to see consistent results. So if I create some testing method and I spread it all over the world, then I expect everyone to give me consistent results. I expect scientist A in Russia and scientist B in the United States and scientist C in Africa to all get consistent results. But that doesn't really prove anything.
There's kind of a problem with that, though, which is...
Well, why wouldn't that prove something?
The majority of the dating that we do is pertaining to specific radioactive isotopes, and we know how these isotopes form, and we can actually monitor the rate at which they decay and use that as a unit of measure. This isn't just some arbitrary kind of ruler thing. Now, I should probably note that the method used with archaeology to date varied sites and what have you is actually a lot less reliable than the varied forms of radiometric dating.
Right, I agree with that. But here's the thing: could something come along that fundamentally shatters what we think regarding dating procedures? Could that happen?
The only thing that would shatter any sort of process that we have is verifiable evidence that the process is flawed in some way.
Well, the thing is, no, hang on, Red. I got to counter you a little bit because there are flaws in each of these methodologies. And there have been times we've come back with results that seem a little bit odd. So what we do is we then go to try and figure out what the extenuating factors were that led to this one particular thing having different results. So, we found out that things in deep water, for example, have a slightly different decay rate and what have you, but nothing on the kind of scale that he's inferring.
Yeah, I understand that. And by the way, what you're referring to is the Coriolis effect, and there can be misapplications, but the process itself is all well and good. And the only way to actually counter the process is by presenting verifiable evidence that the process is flawed. Unfortunately, when we take substances of known age and we apply this process and we apply it to also many other processes that have been shown to be reliable in the past, why is it that they all converge on the same exact answer? You can have an entire chalkboard full of mathematical equations to figure out what 2 + 2 equals, or you can just come out and say it. Regardless what process you go for, as long as you end up with 4, it's working. And that is the same exact thing that we're seeing for the universe as a whole. And also, to answer the original question that was given, why does Venus rotate backwards, aside from any other planets? There's a gravitational theory going on there where there's atmospheric drag because the Venus atmosphere is so goddamn thick. That's
part of the wave differential,
Yeah, so there's a differential in there, and then once you have these tidal forces going on against it, it can actually fuck with the rotation quite a bit. I mean, even the Earth is on a 26,000 year.
Mass.
No. See, Red, you used God's name in vain, so that invalidates your argument.
Yeah, of course it does. Tell that to the atheist. See if he cares.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I did not hear anyone use the Lord's name in vain. I heard somebody use God, which is not actually the name of the divinity, is it? Wah, wah.
So
should I have said Yahweh to him, or should I say
tell it to the judge. All right. So okay. So peripheral prophet used to be, or I don't know, maybe it still is, that young Earthers say that the Earth was created with appearance of age. Is that your position, or are you saying that the appearances of age can be completely explained by natural forces?
Honestly, that's never been a position, I guess, that I've held. You know, when it comes to the age of the Earth thing, here's the thing. I put my faith completely in God over man, right? So I know that men typically will say and do things so long as it caters to their desires. And would it surprise me if everything could it be that everything we think we know is absolutely completely just hogwash? Sure, I have to allow for that, because I know that humans have agendas and they're imperfect, and ultimately, do I trust everything? I mean, like it would be like me as a biologist, if I was to trust everything Dawkins says. The guy contradicts himself so much. Like, why would I listen to that guy? Sure, he may be some great molecular biologist. But
when God created man, did He create man as a baby, or did He create him as apparently having age? When God created trees in the Garden of Eden, did He create them with rings inside the trees? So, I mean, did He create the trees full grown with apparent age? So has God created in such a way that it makes it appear old, or can all the appearances we see be accounted for by naturalistic forces?
Well, there's a little bit of a problem with that, which is that that implies. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sokka.
I mean, seriously. I mean, does it specify at all that it was created with age?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't specify. But I want to know what.
I mean, what I'm saying is that the interpretation that is like, oh well, Adam came out as like a full-grown adult is purely speculation. Because
it doesn't say that. But I'm just asking him, because he's making an assertion. I'm just asking, is his assertion that God creates with age? And I wonder if he would be willing to answer. So does God create?
Well, I guess that would be the most logical way to look at it, right? That if He created Adam as an adult male, and
is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what I believe, that He created him as an adult male. Can I extrapolate that, objectively from Scripture? I guess not.
There's kind of a question.
Did He create trees?
There's a secondary question here, which is, do you believe in a God that would create things in a way that would be misleading to us as we develop further in our existence? And wouldn't that divine entity know that when we got to these kind of dating techniques, that we would be fooled by His very creation?
Well, he hasn't actually said it yet. Let's see if he says it, then we'll ask him the follow-up question. But first, Prophet, when God created trees, did He create trees with the apparent age, with rings inside of them? So does He do that?
That's not something I could obviously answer. I don't know.
Okay. So, but I mean, these things that have apparent ages, if He creates man with apparent age and He creates trees in the garden with apparent age, are you willing to say that it's possible He just created a universe that has apparent age? Is that possible?
Sure. But that doesn't mean that He did it, for some deceptive reason, right? I mean, it could just be that that's just the state He created it in, and our interpretation of it's never going to be His understanding. So
if nature did present you an open book saying that it appears to have age, you still would say, well, God just created it with that appearance of age. So
yeah, but it's not nature that's presenting me that. It's men. It's fallible men.
Yeah. Your point of view is that He did not create it with age. It's just a wrong interpretation of the evidence.
If I may, because
it wouldn't do us any good to even prove that it does have real age, because if we prove that, you would fall back on that God can create with apparent age. You still wouldn't be convinced.
Well, and here's the thing: I'm not entirely dogmatic. Do I believe in a young Earth? Absolutely. Now, here's the thing: did God, in the span of time where He created time, space, and matter, was there some period of time that could have existed prior to everything? I don't know. That's just not something that the Bible's specific on. Now, if I take a literal interpretation from Genesis, then no, I believe he did everything within the first week.
I think there might be a problem there.
If I can,
I'll let you take it for now.
Yeah, because an assertion was made here that, you know, science has an agenda. I'm going to challenge that a bit, because I don't think science has an agenda other than trying to figure out what's true. I think the side that actually has the agenda would be creationism, considering the amount of rallying that they're trying to do, get that shit taught in our schools. Now, when it comes to what science does, we're just looking at the facts that's presented.
Red, are you a scientist? Do you have a degree in anything that would give you an authority in any matter of what you're discussing?
If you'd like me to bring in a couple, I can.
Well, I mean, that's fine, but I'm trying to, like I get on here and I hear people talking about biology and stuff. I'm one of a few, and I guess probably, I'm sure there's more biologists who don't hold to evolution in the Darwinian sense. But oftentimes when I'm talking to the layperson regarding biology, they've come to this conclusion that Darwinian evolution is true, and they have a very limited understanding of genetics.
Listen.
I'm not a molecular biologist by any standard, but those fundamental questions that I ask are still being asked by other biologists.
I want a piece of red saying your position is not the scientific position. The Christian position is the scientific position.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm just.
Wait. I'm sorry. Hang on a second. The Christian position is the scientific position in what way?
In every way. It's the atheist position of, that evolution is scientific. Is an atheistic position, not a scientific position.
It's a scientific position. It's based upon a preponderance of evidence, a massive preponderance.
Yeah, but evidence doesn't presuppose the conclusion, right? It has to be tested against
it's not based on evidence. It's based.
If I can, because there was an assertion made that I would like to address.
Okay.
And the thing is that it's kind of, you know, it's kind of derailing the conversation to ask me, you know, do you have, you know, a scientific background? Do you know this? Do you know that? No, but I've spoken to people who do. I've spoken to people who have PhDs on the matter. One of them, you know, being scientist Sam, who is currently going for his PhD, who has a master's. Another one.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask somebody to clear one spot.
God damn it.
I'm going.
Okay. Yep. And so. We speak to these people, and even though I don't have a degree, I do what I can to know what I know.
Right. We've already talked about this, and I don't hold, you know, information that you have, regardless of your education, against you. What I'm saying is, like, I'm not a physicist, right? So I probably wouldn't hold my own very well with someone who's majored in physics. I would kind of be like reliant on what they're telling me. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of puts me at a disadvantage, because they could tell me pretty much anything, and you know, I would have to kind of like I'd have to at least take it, you know, and examine it later, maybe try to disprove it. But if I would almost have to like learn physics in order to disprove it at their level. I guess it's
really the case that you know, no, I'm not having all these degrees and everything, but I understand what's going on. And when I understand what's going on, I can actually talk about it. Yeah. And the way, and that's basically what it comes down to. My degrees, and some, you know, Sam's actually right here. One of the people who has actually helped me. And when I am ignorant on something, I go to Sam. And I go, hey Sam, what happens when you mix carboxymethylthiopyrimidine, hydrochloric acid, and ammonia nitrate in an aqueous solution at 35 degrees C? And he'll tell me that. Oh, by the way, Sam, thanks for teaching me that. By the way, see.
Yeah, there's an insinuation being tossed around here that I want to address. This whole do you have a degree? So to let you talk in that with this mindset of needing to have that paperwork so that you can talk on a subject. Does that mean that I have the right to determine everything on God just because I'm a reverend?
No.
Well, that's why do you need a degree to talk about science?
Yeah.
No. That's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that. Even a scientist, for example, depending on what field of science he's proposing, you know, I would like to speak to somebody who has probably some education in the matter and can cogently relay that to me, because a lot of people I mean, regarding like biology, for example, a lot of people get on the internet and claim things based on what they've read, but there is false information out there. There are assertions being made that are not actually grounded in reality.
I know, but believe me, I know that there are assertions.
I guess I'm skeptic I guess I'm just a skeptic of
I know stuff that I hear that there are assertions being made that are not grounded in reality, which is that the Earth is 6,000 years old. But if we're going to, if we're going to look at, what is presented to us, let's say God did give us let's say God did create this universe, 6,000 years ago, but made it look billions of years old, and science is just simply going on what the writing is on the wall. If God wrote on the wall, the Earth was made 4.7 billion years ago, but actually wrote that 6,000 years ago, and all we have is the words on the wall to go on, is that really our fault? Does that really mean we have an agenda? Does that mean we're really trying to bash your religious views?
Oh, no.
I want to talk to Red for a minute when I can.
Or are we just reading the writing on the wall?
Red, but that's not the issue here. Whether the age of the Earth is as old or young as I think it is,
the
you think it is,
was,
that has nothing to do with God. That's not why you don't believe in God, right?
Red too,
okay, 2 people at a time. Come on, you know the rules.
Yep. I want to talk to Red when I get a chance. Red, I want to have a little fun with you. I want to say that you're not qualified to discuss this, but KD is, and the reason that KD is qualified is because he's on camera. People who are honest show their faces. You can see their sincerity and their maturity. I'm kind of razzly. Really? I kind of like you, Red, but I'm going to get on your case a little bit. You hide yourself. You hide yourself in shame.
Oh, come on. That's not fair.
Oops, he got ejected. Airlock, damn.
That's not fair.
Just in case Mike watches this here in a second, Mike, I was a bad example to pick. I am a professional troller, at least I used to be. I can look sincere as hell and be lying my ass off.
The viewers have been in the game for a half hour, so that was overdue.
I disagree with the boot, because I would have tore him a new asshole.
That's fine, but the viewers have been sick of listening to him for
Hey, was he being serious?
Yeah.
Please rip him a new asshole and let him listen to it later.
Yeah,
I want to hear it.
That's a common mantra from him, that if you're not on camera, you're dishonest.
Okay, here's the thing. Some people have lives outside of YouTube, and they would like to keep those lives relatively unmolested. So
yeah, I've seen what people do to people's personal lives on here, and it's not.
There you go.
Oh, I had someone do that
between Thicky and Captain Massimo. Point fucking made. Okay.
Well, I mean, I had that guy who called my department, the biology department at my school, and tried to get me kicked out of my master's program.
Okay, so point being made there. The thing that I was getting on, the thing that I was getting on was that, we have this agenda. It's not an agenda. It's just we're trying to seek the facts, and these are the facts that we're finding.
I think you guys all agree.
Hang on. And if God is giving us the writing on the wall, and the writing on the wall says a certain thing, and we're reading it as we are seeing it, that doesn't mean that we're having an agenda. It's just that God decided to fuck with us in the biggest troll move possible by saying, "Hey, watch this. I'm gonna put a fossil here. Watch this. Watch this."
Agreed. And if God planted the evidence, then so be it. But I'm going to follow the evidence, and it's his fault if I'm wrong, or her fault, or its fault, whatever.
Yeah, it's not that we can't go on the presupposition that scientists are out there with a vendetta against religion or vendetta against a 6,000-year-old Earth.
There's a point at which it starts sounding like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
exactly.
it starts sounding like a conspiracy theory, when in reality we're not there going and saying that this is wrong because we want it to be. We're going out saying that it appears to be wrong because evidence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah,
I think one of the other points is that this idea that keeps being put forward that there's okay, well, these are just two opposing ideas. These are two opposing theories in the scientific community, and it's not that. There is no two opposing ideas. There are people that follow the facts to where they lead, and then there's Christians.
Here's a question.
Well, that's broad, but I mean, you know what I mean is that there is
very broad. I mean, fuck.
I know, but
Here's my question on that, though. What is more likely, that a supernatural being who can do anything but lie because he cannot lie because anything he says becomes truth as soon as he says it, decided to lie to us and put a bunch of evidence to the contrary, or that the evidence is true?
Oh, I'm going to throw in something just for the sake of the folks that are listening in on the external chat. If you haven't eaten, go eat. We'll be here.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. My computer is kind of too clunky to move around. It's not a portable computer, so just saying. but yeah, so when it comes to the assertion that, you know, oh, man this, man that, the only thing man's trying to do is figure out what the hell is going on, and we've actually taken a pretty damn good stab at it. I mean, hell, we landed on the moon with our discoveries. So and you want to know my saying? It's science, because you can't pray this shit into space.
Well, yeah, but like, okay, I would ask you. I would say, well, what did landing on the moon? What was the tangible benefit to humanity by some guys landing on the moon?
Well,
did it solve world hunger? Did more people get a place to live because of it?
Actually, yes.
Did we?
Yeah. Well, most of the software that was developed that guide our planes now was developed as a result of the lunar trips.
But to answer your question, yes, we will get more places to live because of it.
Yeah, there's actually now a big push. Especially from
that's a pretty objective statement.
Yes, it is.
It is, because that is our goal. I mean, Elon Musk is literally stating.
Yes, well, no, we're overlooking this. There actually are practical benefits from space exploration that we've already reaped. I mean, so much of the software and engineering that we use for modern day flight. That was a lot of, the majority of that was developed as a result of NASA's research. I mean, there's been tangible benefits in terms of, how our economy's engineering sector works, because so much of that technology has now been privatized.
Yeah, so we're no longer scratching our heads in some aspects, because some of the major questions that people have been asking, like, for example, composition of the moon and sending rovers to Mars to answer all those questions. I mean, we do that, to find the answers to these questions.
Yeah,
sometimes we actually get more questions than answers, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's great, but nobody really cares about that stuff. The average.
Oh, so no, wait.
No.
I'm talking about
I call bullshit right there, because I care about this stuff.
Okay. Did no one hear what I just said? I just said that our engineering sector, which is an extremely large sector in the U.S. economy, the rate of return on the investment in the lunar trips is something like 100 to 1. Have you seen the econometric studies on that? And you're saying that's not tangible, that our engineering sector has exploded because of
so somebody's making a lot more money. What I'm saying is how has it benefited humanity? Why are there still people starving and don't have places to live?
Well, now you're just changing.
That's a completely different question.
You're just shifting the goalposts there.
Yeah. How's it benefiting humanity is one question. Why hasn't it solved all of our problems in existence? Is a completely different conversation.
Yeah, I'll say this much: our space thing has been able to make drinkable water out of the most deplorable shit out there, because that's what you need in a space station. We figured out a way to be literally self-sufficient, and
we can do that without a space station. It was designed here. We didn't have to send people to space to test it and see if it was going to work and all that stuff. I mean,
here's the thing: because with the space station, especially with the space station, if we're going to branch out and become a multi-planet species and be able to be more prosperous as a result, we're going to need to solve those problems. And those problems are currently being worked on the ISS as we speak. And private enterprise is now using that as a test bed to get people to Mars. Look at what SpaceX is doing. They're now designing rockets that land themselves.
And also, I don't buy this. I also don't buy this argument that, okay, this could have all just been, developed by private industry. I mean, let's look at history, right? The majority of technological breakthroughs in the United States, I can only speak for the United States, are things that were financed by the government, and then once they became economically viable, they were then part of private industry. And a lot of the times, those big breakthroughs were things that were completely unrelated to their original purpose. So, I mean, this is a very utilitarian argument for science research.
Mm-hmm. And if we can't find, and let's say this, even if we can't think off the top of our heads one benefit for the moon landing, that still does not negate the fact that by the facts that we have learned about the universe has allowed us to exploit our knowledge about that and make it achievable to landing a man on the moon, landing a rover on Mars, and even beaming Curiosity the happy birthday song so it could sing happy birthday to itself, which I thought was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
That was pretty awesome.
Sad.
To specifically, yeah, that is kind of sad. To specifically answer the question you put forth, that you claimed my response was prophecy. One of the original people, and I'm leaving names out of this for specific reasons, but one of the original people that used to hang out here in these Heathens hangouts is actually one of the members of the Mars One mission planned to colonize Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Elon Musk is stating it in his mission statement, and he's like, okay, all right, what's your goal? And Elon Musk says, you know what? I'm going to establish a colony on Mars in 10 years. And so that's his goal. And so he says, you'll never do it. You'll never fucking do it. 4 years later, oh look, the SpaceX Dragon's connected to the space station.
Hey, just so you guys don't think I'm like my brother is he's actually in school right now. This is like his life goal is to figure out ways to colonize other planets. So like I have this discussion quite frequently with my brother. It's probably not as tense.
There is a benefit. I'm just saying that there is a benefit, but even if there wasn't a benefit, that doesn't negate the fact that we figured this shit out by the facts that we have learned through science. And it was because of that we were able to land a man on the moon, send a rover to Mars, have the Cassini spacecraft jetting off to Pluto to take pictures of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying the ion drive module. We figured that shit out because of that. That's a engine that literally just pumps through atoms and drives 11 miles a second through space.
I guess okay. From I don't know if this is maybe the philanthropist in me, but we're trying to figure out how to get people to other planets so that they can survive on other planets. But we completely seem to disregard the fact that we could be doing the same thing here. Because
there are people doing that's a false dichotomy.
Those are separate issues, and I'll tell you why. We have problems here. We do. We have people starving and all that good stuff, and we need to solve world hunger. It's not an easy issue, but it's a separate issue because we need people on other planets to ensure the survival of the human.
Exactly. That's kind of where I'm going with that. If we can't ensure that people can eat now, what makes us think that we're going to go to another planet and not have the same problem?
Yeah, it's like
one at a time.
Essentially, what you're saying is you're saying, oh man, we have all this money going into cancer research, but we still have heart disease.
Yes, but here's what I'm saying though. Okay?
Well, no, these problems will carry over.
But there's plenty of money going towards developing, developing solutions to world hunger, and money, from scientists doing research on this stuff.
Well, also there's a number of other factors. Now, to be a total dick for a minute, solving world hunger is not cost effective.
No, it's not.
It's a horrible fucking thing to say, but it's a brutal truth. If there was a financial incentive for these big corporations that have all this power to go and do something about it, they would do it. There just isn't, and that's a sad, pathetic thing to say, but it's part of the human condition that we deal with. In terms of trying to colonize other planets, there is more of an incentive in terms of cost effectiveness, because they're going to have to charter the flights and what have you, and all this other stuff. There is a potential economic gain eventually. But there's another factor too, which is frankly a reason why I think being able to go and colonize and go to other planets is even more important than solving things like world hunger, which is simply put, if we get hit by a large enough rock, we're all dead.
Exactly. To finish my point, I was going to say something very similar. If we get people on other planets, that ensures the survival of the species. World hunger and that kind of stuff is ensuring the survival of groups of our species. The whole is a little bit higher priority than the few.
Yep. And
yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess that's just a different.
But it's just an irrelevant. But to begin with, man, that's an irrelevant criticism. I mean, there are people who do science research on how we can either, from an economic perspective, what's the best way to distribute food? From a biological perspective, how do we, engineer, resistant crop
Yeah, people won't, and some people won't eat those. I mean, fuck. There's a fucking debate going on about vaccines.
Okay.
We made it, and you're spitting in our face.
Okay, if you choose not to eat the genetically modified crops and then you starve to death, it sounds like you made a dumb decision and it's your own damn fault you died.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an irrelevant criticism. I mean, you can't criticize one area of science research for prioritizing its area of science research.
Yeah, they're separate issues, separate people.
Yep, and that's,
but you're going to take all of these
originally.
issues. You're basically just going to take these issues from one planet to the next, and
no. Remember, the original issue was the fact that science has solved these problems with the facts that people say are not actually facts. And they are, because science has demonstrated that they're facts.
What problems were you referring to? I'm sorry, just trying to keep with the conversation.
Okay, because the fact is that when you said that, how do we know that science is actually doing jack shit that is actually factual? How does science know? How can science read the writing on the wall and know that the writing is not pure bullshit? Well, because if the writing on the wall was pure bullshit, we wouldn't be able to land on the moon. We'd probably be crashing in a fiery ball of death. And imagine that on the live screen. Nixon wouldn't be able to make his phone call. But because the writing on the wall was factual, and because man was able to understand the facts, they were able to use that to their advantage. So when you say that man can be mistaken, sure, but are we also going to completely negate the fact that we've done a pretty damn good job so far?
We've done a pretty good job at killing each other too. I mean, I guess that's all relative. I mean,
we've done a pretty good job in a lot of things, all right. But the fact is that when we're sticking about science, or sticking to science,
this is the same. Well, I mean, this is the same criticism as Fritz Haber came up with the Haber process. Now we have fertilizer. Oh, but also we can use fertilizers for bombs. I mean, make up your mind what argument you're going to.
Here's the thing: you can't really look at your son or daughter or whoever or some sibling that you have and go, "Oh, good, look, you're cleaning your room, good job." But why is ISIS still killing people, huh? Why have you done anything about that?
Yeah, but are you guys afraid that there's like some impending, earth-ending, something's going to happen or something?
It's not really a matter of when.
Yeah. Given enough time and opportunity, cosmic near impossibilities become reality.
Yeah. It's the law of infinite probability, and eventually it will happen, and the only way we are going to survive like long term is to become multi-planet. That's the only way we're ever going to do it.
Even if we have the perfect...
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we know that we've had huge asteroids hit the planet before in the past. We know that the damage that it's done to the planet.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, it's just a matter of when is it going to happen again.
And even if we have perfect luck, somehow we dodge bloody everything else in the future. No more asteroids, no more comets, nothing like that happens, no big solar flares. 5 billion years goes by, our sun explodes.
Yeah.
We're also going to deplete the planet before then. So I mean, it's not if, it's when.
Why do you think people take out insurance policies? Why do you think I have full coverage insurance on my car?
Yeah, but the same thing could happen on Mars too, right? I mean, Mars could be completely obliterated by the same.
Yeah, but you're gonna have a backup. You'll still have a backup.
Here's the thing. This is going to call back to the conversation earlier. We flew to Mars, we flew to the moon, we landed someone on the moon. That was a stepping stone. Next, we're going to be able to colonize Mars. That's a stepping stone. Eventually, we will be able to get farther out.
Well, so I don't know. I guess I'm looking at like the closest star in our galaxy is further than any human could survive to reach, even at incomprehensible speeds right now.
Right now.
Even
I mean, if you think we're gonna like develop the ability to,
even if we don't develop the ability to travel at light speeds or faster, even though if we send a mission of people to that star, those people may not survive the entire mission to there, but their grandchildren or great-grandchildren will.
You're also forgetting relativity. Time slows down as you move fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so
Going-
it wouldn't seem as long for the people
Yeah,
on the
going
spaceship.
at-
They wouldn't age as fast.
Yeah, going at what was it, 20% the speed of light, which some people out there say is actually completely possible. And they say that you can get there in 70 years, which is one lifetime. So you wouldn't even have to go 2 generations, just one generation. Have the people have kids, and there you go. You have something that can populate that planet, and now you have even more multi-planet species.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I'm really gonna have to get down there, but I did promise somebody that I'd join him for a hangout, and I just got my invite, so I should go help them out, which means I'm gonna have to cut this short.
Okay.
I was.
Cut it
Sorry, we're
long,
gonna
maybe.
have fun without you, so see you later.
Have a good one, Shadow.
I'll
Make
catch
me
you later.
mod.
And for those of you, thank you for joining us, and I gotta go and yell at an asshole for a while. I'll catch you later.
Hey, who is it, by the way?
It's one of these anti-psychiatry douchebags.
Ah,
Yep. Share the controls with me before you leave.
I will do. Give me a second.
Power.
I will give you
I want the power.
I want the power.
Red, dude, I'm coming to Tampa, bro. You're gonna convince me this just needs to happen.
No, in fact, if you want to, I'll tell you what. You will go to the Space Coast, and you'll see exactly what I mean, and you'll see the amount of awesome that is NASA. And
Space Coast, coast to ghost. Anyway.
Yes, the Space Coast is absolutely awesome. Cape Canaveral, Florida.